So people are just still
So,
going crazy
at
over
the
your
base in the
NFL
heart
NFTs
of
and
midlife
shit.
crisis,
I have not
not
paid
gonna
attention
lie,
to
it's
any of
Mikey
that
G and Maddie Mintz.
ecosystem.
And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base in the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base in the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we...
I'm gonna unmute Maddie.
All right, sounds good.
What up, folks? Welcome to the Midlife Crisis Show. It is our pleasure to have the Citadel dudes back. We are super excited. But before we get down that rabbit hole, Maddie, how you doing, dog?
Oh, man. Wonderful day. No complaints whatsoever, man. I mean, it's, let's see, a little bit of a rainy day. I am checking the audio. It does sound like, Mike, that you're in like sounds like you're in like a little echo chamber. Not echo chamber, maybe like you're in the bathroom. Just letting you know.
How about
now?
I'm not going to know. The delay is going to be 15 seconds, so I'll have to let you know after. But yeah, man, good day. Got in 2 different workouts, which was awesome. Good clients today. Excited. We have a packed weekend, I know, for midlife stuff, so it's going to be good. But this is one of my favorite projects, and I cannot wait to catch up. It's going to be good.
Hell yeah. And that's same here, too. It was cloudy all day in Southern California, which is very rare. I think I told you, I don't know, it was Tuesday or last night. I think it was Tuesday night. Thunderstorm, which was insane. That never happens, and it brought me back to my East Coast roots. I freaking miss the thunderstorms, man. But since we're running a little bit late, we're going to do the fun intro. Maddie, I'm going to let you take it away, and I'm going to check out this Twitter space while you do it.
Yep, and make sure you're checking the audio too. Okay, so, you know, we always like to do a couple fun facts with our guests. And I'm going to start with Styx here, because what you may not know is he just recently got back from Bogota. He's an avid traveler, been stranded multiple times in several different countries, and that's where he finally learned, like Liam Neeson, to acquire certain skills. He's got a gift for survival. He's managed to find his way back home every time. He loves the culture. He loves to travel. He inserts himself in each country he goes to and brings back a little something for himself. So, Styx, welcome to the show. Good to have you. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for the great intro. It's a pleasure to see you guys all bright and happy and seeing your crowd. And can't wait to talk about Citadel today.
Dude,
Awesome, man.
We're going to have a freaking blast. I can't wait.
And then we got Max. Max here, this is the easiest one. This is great, man. I like chill. And Max is an avid surfer, and there's always a certain vibe that comes with that. But not just avid, because we're in the day and age where people will go surfing, or maybe they took one class, maybe they watched a master class or something, and then they love to put it on their Instagram profile that they're an avid surfer. Truth is, Max actually surfs every Saturday and Sunday. And Max, how long have you been doing that?
It's been about 5 years. Ever since I moved to SoCal, I've been doing
Boom.
it and absolutely love it.
There you go. So that's over 500 surfing trips. Think about that right there. That is definitely an avid surfer, and we're loving to have you on the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Really excited to be back. This is our favorite show. Excited to talk Web3 and maybe a little Citadel as well. Thanks so much.
Hell yeah, man. Love it. Love it. Mikey, how we looking on Twitter Spaces?
I don't know. I'm going, so... I don't know. I'm getting Robo voices, apparently.
Yeah, I sound like a robot. I did all the audio stuff. So, Mike, just so you know, on my side, just a real quick little technical talk here, folks. Pause for a moment. I literally have no other feedbacks here. It's just one microphone source, no outputs whatsoever other than Discord.
All right, let me listen to this.
I'm going, so... I don't know. I'm getting Robo voices.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a little robotic. Let's just roll with it and see what's
all right,
going
let's
on.
do it. All right, that's fine.
All right, gentlemen. So let's start with how in the hell have you both been doing? And I'm gonna so Styx, you're on the top of the screen. Max, you're on the bottom. I'll go Styx, and then Max, you can chime in. But I'll start with you, Styx, because I love to hear from both of your individual perspectives. When we talked, it was so early that we had given some drachma away, but it didn't quite yet exist, so we couldn't even give it away. So we had not minted yet. Take us through when we talked through mint into where you're now. I'd love to hear that journey from your perspective.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long.
Isn't that crazy? It's been that long.
Right.
That's
Mike, you have
really
no video.
amazing.
I know.
Cool. The journey itself was revealing to me, in the sense that as an artist, to set like this intention, this goal to create this body of work, not knowing exactly what I was getting myself into, and how I was gonna produce the work, with just juggling the job and life itself. But it from Mint, it was so exciting to get people involved, and then I think what really was the big part of the journey for me was the reveals and doing them in small batches. That took a lot of pressure off of trying to do it all at one time and dealing with any kind of feedback, and also working with the community. And our community is so fucking awesome.
That's a great way to say it.
You know, I've been so impressed with just like how Max and I went from just like talking about this concept and getting it on paper, and then just drawing a few little things, like, what do you think of this? And the next thing I'm doing some painting, and then just seeing how each of these factions have come to life, how each of the members of our community embracing those factions. And also as I started painting, my style started evolving, and I started looking at like getting more into the community and like what kind of biomes would they like to see, and this sort of reciprocity that you don't get to see too often in game development. A
Right.
lot of times in game development, you're in a black box. You're like predicting like what's going to be cool based on your inputs, and you don't have this sort of uh, visceral connection with with the community. And that's something that was just like really huge for me, as an artist as well as a professional, because on my IRL job, I'm coming back and kind of going, and they don't know I'm doing what I'm doing, right?
Right.
So I'm just like saying, hey, like we should probably like consider our communities a little bit more and be more out there and getting that feedback, because in Web3 it's so immediate and it
Yeah.
changes so fast, right? So I could go on and on about that. So I'll stop right there. We can.
Wait. You're not off the hook that easy, man. Keep on going on about this, because one thing you said that I think is really interesting is this black box concept, right? So I'd love to hear you just dive deeper around, like, that totally changes the game creation for you, right? You're having a live community, you're getting feedback. That had to be like a really cool experience. Tell me,
It still is
yeah,
cool.
oh
I
my
mean,
God, it's going to be
like
a
right now, like I mean,
multi-year.
right before getting on this, I was painting some pilots. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
uh, it's like changed so much. It's like an elevation from like consciousness. Like imagine like going from a first person shooter game, and you're so conditioned to playing it, then you play into third person. Now you have like more visibility of your environment, right?
Right. And
So
so I think what I'm interested in hearing from you, and obviously you just said there's differences, but are there any aspects of this game creation mode versus what you traditionally do? One, what are the biggest differences other than the interactivity with the community? And do you like one over the other, or do both kind of have their benefits?
well, I will say that I deeply enjoy the Web3 space. One for its speed, and two for the community, and three, like watching this when we first before when we talked to you guys, like the
Mm-hmm.
market was in a certain place, and now it's in a different place completely, right? And yet through that whole time, we've grown on our side and just constantly pushing forward, constantly creating and designing. And in the other game development sphere, it's like depending on how much your budget is, like whether it be a $10 million game or a $100 million game, you're predicting where that window is going to be and whether or not your game is going to be hitting the market at the right time, and if it's going to be liked or not, and if all this effort and burn rate, all this sort of finances are going to, and support from marketing are going to work. And it's like such a gamble, right? Like here
Right.
with Web3, like we can pivot very quickly. And it's one thing I learned from Max when we first started working together
Mm-hmm.
is just like his immediacy. And it changed the way that I started looking at game development, because you have to understand in game development, it's like generational conditioning. And what I mean by that specifically is that you have a game developer that typically will spend in their career 4 years on a game to 3 to 4 years. And that cycle, that life cycle of a game developer is like they've been in the game industry for 15 years. That's three games basically, or 3 to 5
Jeez.
games, right?
I never thought
So,
Yeah.
of it that way. That's interesting.
right. And so think about like why does crunch exist and why is that a problematic thing now? Like why is it brought up in the social awareness? It's because those people that have been making games for 10 plus years now have families. Their priorities have changed. They're no longer in their 20s and just have the
Yeah.
energy to just constantly work
Right.
and be taken advantage of publishers to
Right.
make that happen, right?
Right.
Now we have this other
Yeah.
space where it's much more immediate and we get the feedback from the audience way quicker. There's videos, there's streaming, there's no more like big reveals like there used to be. And so it changes the psychology. And I think that it's really interesting to see how there's the resistance to some game developers on the Web3 space, and then others that are embracing it. I'm coming from the standpoint of looking at it from a technology's way, right? Like this is where technology is evolving. It's like one time I did a talk on the East Coast, and someone was asking me if VR and all that sort of technology was here to stay, like, or is it just a trend? And I was like, well, they thought rock and roll was a trend.
Right.
Yeah, it's a technology that's constantly evolving,
Right.
Right.
and it may not look like 10 years from now, VR may not look the way it looks right now. Probably won't.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I I hope that answers your question, but it's like something I think about a lot is just like where are we looking at? I like looking at things from a really broad perspective and like how are we developing experiences for people to dive into in the next 10, 20, 50 years, 500 years, right? What's that going to look like? And what
Right.
can
Yeah.
I do right now to help shape it in a way that is going to be engaging? Because entertainment is such a fluid thing, and what we think is fun or engaging, you look like at a show that came out in the late 80s versus someone that a show
Yeah.
that came out in the 60s. It's like the pacing is so different. Even movies, right? The way
Right.
that they use color and the way that they speak, it's all evolving. And to me, that's really exciting. That's why I love being in the game industry.
Dude, that is, it's just so cool to hear experts in their field talk about it because like that everything you just had touched on, um I just never would have thought of myself, right? Because I'm not,
Hmm.
in it day to day. The follow up, and you might not have any answer other than Web3 versus traditional gaming with the interactivity with the community. Is there
Hmm.
any other differences between the two worlds that you love or dislike, or is it really just that kind of community concept? Anything else there?
There's a lot there. What comes up for me around that is the way that we produce the game and like we're blockchain and what does that really mean? And also the NFT, right? One of the things that I owe a lot to Max is in the education of NFTs. And I really began to understand how do we bring value to a token? How do we bring value to a piece of art that is used as a game piece?
Mm.
And understanding that NFTs are much more than just some electronic receipt for a piece of digital art.
Yeah.
There's so much more depth to it, and it's easy to write off an NFT whenever there's not understanding, right? It's like
Right.
whenever you see or play a game and you don't know how many hundreds of hours of people's time energy has gone into making it and money.
Yeah.
Right.
But that first 5 minutes, if it's not fun, who cares? So what? Right.
Yeah.
And so what I'm getting at with that is like what I find really intriguing about NFTs in the blockchain is that here's a new form of technology that on the surface is like DLC, right? I'm purchasing something within a game world to bring me some value. What I find really exciting about NFTs is that I'm like, well, what would happen if we embedded some time release stuff? What if we embedded some uh,
Hmm.
their own kind of secret unlocks based on how the person who owns the NFT interacts with it. what if, like going through these old sort of like ways to innovate in the space that
Yeah.
aren't expected. That to me is what I find really exciting because um, I would have to wait like for a game to come out that I have produced and then like do a DLC, work with Microsoft, and then like make sure all that's like covered in their rules and regulations or Sony, and then put my Easter eggs in there, make sure they're legit. But with an NFT, I can just constantly like be dropping some stuff, and like say for instance, if you have a Citadel and you get a pilot, like the pilot is going to have like some really cool stuff that unlocks in the way that you use it,
Mm.
and it may
So
be like, oh anyway, go ahead, yeah.
yeah, so what I'm hearing is like you're trying to find ways to think outside the box to create more engagement from the actual gamer or end user or NFT owner, to keep them long enough to essentially create a community out of those people, that participate. Is that what am I hearing that right?
Well, I would say to clarify, the community is already there and engaged,
Sure.
and Max is already. We'll talk more about that, about what we've been doing with Exordium. And that's been really an amazing thing to witness for both of us. What I'm
Mhm.
talking about is like it's like a bonus value add
Mm.
on
Sure.
like the game experience. And the more that we're looking at, well, we brainstorm on like, well, how can we get this value into the game and outside of the game? What
Yeah.
other elements can we bring into it? That's where I think is really exciting.
Yeah. F- Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, there's been an evolution, right? Because I mean, Mike and I are older, and I mean, you used to go rent a Nintendo game from a video store, right?
Hmm.
And we'd go down to Valley Video,
Valley Video, baby.
and they had a little 5-5-5 deal: 5 games, $5, 5 days. That's right. And you would rent these games, and the buy-in was that like, well, I got it for 5 days, so I might as well play it, right? And so even if the game wasn't good, you
Hmm.
get far enough into it because your interest, you had already rented it, and so I get that. And then you fast forward, and the buy-in became the cost of the game. I remember
Hmm.
buying games for Xbox, whatnot, and it's like you spend 50, 60, $70 on a game. You're like, man, $70. I'm going to give this more than 3 minutes, right? I want to make,
Hmm.
is this good or not?
Hmm.
What's interesting is now that people have gotten used to games on their phone, or a lot of these games are coming out. I mean, look at Modern Warfare, or at least I should say Warzone,
Hmm.
or Fortnite,
Fortnite.
where it's like, this is free. The game is
Hmm.
free. How do you now, as a game developer, especially for the bigger companies, right? A Microsoft or whatever it might be. How do you still get that sense of buy-in from a community behind it when it's free up, right off the bat? Because if it's not good,
Hmm.
to them it's free, and so they're just like, well, all right, I'll just wait till the next game, or wait till they'll kind of pivot. And what I think is cool is you're looking at it like, how do we solve that problem from a game side of it to
Hmm.
still keep people wanting to participate, and like you said, the time delayed releases, things like
Hmm.
that would create more buy-in. I think it's a fascinating concept, and I think that when that is done correctly, we're going to see a new evolution and wave of how these games come about. You know what I mean? I think there's going to be a new trend. What do you think?
I totally agree with you on that. I think that it's so amazing. Like I got when I first got into games, it was arcade days,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
seeing
Yes.
the evolution of pointing a light gun at a screen and watching actors interact on video,
yep. Terminator
or
2, Judgment Day, best. That arcade, man. I spent a lot of
right.
money on that.
And so and like the value was money of like I'm spending a quarter to get his maximum amount of time. That was the value add,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And so you see the evolution of just like how we've conditioned players as an industry. And
Hmm.
I look at like this from just like a linguistics or a social or a psychological standpoint is
Psychological, yeah.
because what we do is game developers. I do a lot of work with game developers and just kind of like saying, hey, look, like, do you realize that influencing masses of people, and you're helping them deal with their stress or deal with their life. I mean, midlife crisis, right?
Right.
It's a way of like, what's the, I always ask them, like, are you like looking into what the nature of fun is, or why you're making games, and what is the purpose of these things,
Yeah.
or these experiences?
Yeah.
And because to me, it's a worthwhile exercise. Like, why do you guys do this YouTube channel? It's because you two guys got together, like you both want to be there for a community and have entertainment, so people have a place to come to,
Yeah.
right? And it's multi-level, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I've just been looking at like how the evolution of my career, and like been so fortunate to work on so many big games and promote and pitch certain games that have people are playing right now as I speak. There's never been a time that someone hasn't been playing a game that myself and my team have not worked on, right? That there's something going on, someone's playing it.
Yeah.
And every game developer has that experience, and a lot of them just don't even realize it, you know. Even the guys that worked on SpongeBob or Scooby Doo, right?
Right.
So there's some kid playing that game somewhere, or some adult, you know. And so
Maddie,
that's
hold on.
Yeah.
Maddie, breathing a little bit, but
what,
Who?
who's breathing?
I think might be Maddie.
Mm, doing
Mm.
it
Maybe it was
again.
me. I was getting hot and heated talking about this stuff.
I know. I mean,
Max,
maybe that's why I was breathing hard too. I
Max is
mean,
just
Well,
getting
I'm just very
it's
real
passionate
contagious.
heated.
about this stuff, and I'm very passionate about the game
Yeah.
community, and I'm more passionate about our players and making sure that people are taken care of. Like, I find it a huge responsibility to create entertainment for people and to make sure that they have a really rich experience. And so when I got involved in Web3, one of the things that Max and I talk a lot about is like, how can we bring more value to people?
Right.
Because when I first got involved with Web3, it was like, oh, I can put my artwork up there. A lot of my friends are like, oh, because I have other bodies of artwork that I've done. Like, oh, you should totally put that artwork up. And I was about to, and then I was like, then I started seeing these things, the rug pulls and all that kind of stuff, and it was just ugly. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be involved in any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Max approached me about, looking over his white paper and talking about the gameplay and stuff and kind of mapping things out, I saw like the bigger picture, especially from Max's point of view. Max, sorry if I'm like going on and on about this stuff, but it's
This is the point of this show,
Yeah.
and this is amazing. So please never
okay.
apologize.
Okay, got it, got it.
This is your two's platform to
Yeah.
just talk about. And I think one thing, and I'll let you go on, is uh, this is what I think so critically important about
Mm,
one, you two are obviously immediately when you hear the first show, you both are brilliant. And I think, and Maddie and I believe why we do this too, is yes, you guys have created an amazing project, but who doesn't want to hear your mind about gaming and where it's going and why you're doing this? This is
Yeah.
amazing, right? So
mm,
yeah, keep it going.
mm. Well, I really appreciate that. It's something that Max and I talk a lot about, just in, you know, our purpose in doing what we're doing is to create, like, and he'll go into it. It's to get people back to that place where they're actually feeling something when they're playing a game, that there's a
Yeah.
something of value. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like with the way that things have gone in our history, in the big scheme of our history, we have different gamers that have experienced different sort of traumatic events in our culture, our global culture, and gaming has thrived throughout all of that. Why? Because it gives people a place to have community
Hmm.
in a time where it's hard to even like be face to face with people,
Right.
without some kind of
Yeah.
fear that's been, just seeping through our society. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I put such a big emphasis on our community, because it's amazing to see such great personalities come together, and it's not toxic. It's not these sort of like atypical first person shooter sort of personalities. It's just people who love games and that are interested in what we're doing with the economics, with the factions, with the different sort of mythologies we're bringing in.
Yeah.
And I'm just in constant gratitude with just being able to talk about this stuff and to be able to have a platform like this to be able to express it. So I really appreciate you guys.
Oh man, thank you. And I will say one thing. You don't even need to go to the game aspect to evoke emotion because I look at your images, dude, and they're moving. They move me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like they're
Well,
just you did it just with your artwork and not to
Mhm.
mention all the other cool, amazing stuff you
but
guys have done.
that reinforces exactly what he's saying, Mike. I mean, that's the thing is that, man, I wrote it down. You said feeling something when you're playing a game. Like the fact that that is your ethos and that is the lens that you're putting all of your work and effort through, it shows.
Mhm.
It's why every drawing I've seen is just fantastic. And I think that's what you're getting to, Mike. And what I would say too is this is the dichotomy that's always out there, right? Is that do I make something because it's right and it's good, or do I make something because it's fast and I can sell it, right?
Mhm.
And it's like if you think it, so I'm in the fitness industry, right? And there is a constant pull
Mhm.
to give you the next tricky thing that somebody will just pay me for, but
Mhm.
it's not real, right? The fitness, I mean, it's been that way forever, right?
Sure.
Everybody's looking for a shortcut. Or I can just teach you real, genuine principles to be healthy and fit, but you're going to have to put some work into it, right? And there's just
Mhm.
a constant pull like, well, what sells, what doesn't? And when it comes to games, what I really love that you touched on is that it used to be about making games that were fun. And I don't know if have you seen Ready Player One?
Yes.
So the concept that, when he's trying to create a game that people enjoy playing.
Mhm.
When at the whole end concept when he didn't sign the contract was he's like, I just wanted somebody to enjoy playing my game, and I just think that that's so missed these days because
Mhm.
we fall into this trap of the Candy Crushes that have basically used psychological hacks to keep people playing and keep getting microtransactions, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Rather than just making a game that is really fun to play and get lost in. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I think
Absolutely.
it's really cool to hear because you guys have been saying this from the start, but also to hear someone in that industry share this information, right? Because
Mhm.
this sounds like something you would just hear some YouTuber or reviewer say about how games need to go back to the good old days when they were fun. It's really refreshing to hear a person who actually makes games express that. It gives me a lot of faith and confidence in the future of games to know that there are developers out there, artists out there that really care about this and want to make gaming fun because I agree with you, man. This has given people, and it's not like it's just now, but I think it's been magnified now.
Mhm.
Gaming is a place to escape. I mean, people use it for all different kinds of reasons. I mean, Mike and I talk about it all the time, man. Gaming is a place of zen for us. It's a
Yep.
place where I can turn my brain off. I don't have to think about the billion things that are on my to-do list, and I can escape to someplace else and just be happy and have fun and have a good time. And
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. And what's sad is when people stop making games about having fun, we lose those places. And so it's an irony, but it's kind of like if you just do it the right way, you end up making more money long term anyway, because people
For
will
sure.
play your game because it's fun and they'll keep playing your game because
Yep.
it's fun.
Yeah.
And I just think that's one of these it's just an interesting kind of dichotomy and almost an
Mm.
um well, I don't know, I guess the word would be, but it's a conundrum that's out there in the space that people
Right.
constantly are fighting, and I just
For
think that
sure.
it's
For
neat to
sure.
hear you express it, express why you're passionate about it. I just think more people need to hear that, and I'd love to hear, you know, more honestly, more on how you want to incorporate it.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things that, just to let you know, that within the gaming development community, a lot of my peers, one of the things that we constantly talk about is the nature of fun.
Mm.
Mhm.
Uh, it's something that I bring up on a daily basis with my own designers into
Yeah,
what is the nature of fun and how do you know you're having it? and really like taking that as an inquiry on a daily basis, it really changes the way that you look at life. Because pizza's fun for some people,
Right.
jumping out of an airplane is fun for some people, working out, right? And
Yeah.
helping others get their bodies in alignment and feeling great about who they are is fun. And that to me is a very fascinating thing to dive into. I just happen to be in games. Like I
Right.
find
Yeah.
it, I'm very, uh, blessed is a good word, or just very lucky. Every day I'm like, I must be the luckiest being in all of creation because I can't believe I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And I want to be able to share that enthusiasm and those very things that help players have more fun is like to understand what that means for them personally. Like you mentioned, like playing games is a place to like just shut your brain down and like totally flow, be in that meditative state. That in itself is like a dopamine cycle,
Yep.
you know? And so you mentioned like a Candy Crush, like King, they have, I know a lot of people that work there. And so they're very, very aware of the dopamine cycle,
Oh,
Yeah.
of course,
right?
right?
Oh yeah. And I'm not knocking it, by the way. This is how Vegas works, right? It just
Yeah.
is. It both prey on. It's the same reason people will watch a video of somebody like slowly, methodically, like cutting an orange perfect peel. And it's like your brain is satisfied seeing it, and so
Yeah.
you just you have to keep watching. It's just a play on the brain. But yeah, it's not a knock, but it is an exploit. I'll say that.
Mm, hmm. Yeah.
But
Okay. So,
I love what you're saying too. Just to layer on to what Maddie said is whether you want to uh, talk about, playing to the brain and what's satisfying. I do think this concept of, and this is the other narrative I heard you and Max say, is there's just this long-term vision I see you guys have. You talk about when you describe the project, you always talk about years and not months,
hmm
and that is a general principle, universal principle across everything, right? Like Matt said, how do you really lose weight? Well, you decrease your calories and go to the gym over a long period of time. How,
Consistently. Yep.
how do you make an awesome game? You show up today and you use your past experience, with you both guys have done, and embrace new technology opposed to, because we also know a lot of gamers actually hate NFTs, right?
hmm
So you're now taking that, just throwing that out of the window because you see the opportunity, and look what it's already given you. And I think that's just really cool for you to have all that experience and take a big bite out of this new technology, and you're already
hmm
seeing the benefits. And I think we might have talked about this in the first, but my version of what you're saying is I've been in corporate brand marketing my whole life, 20 plus career. Yeah.
mm
And um this is brand 3.0 as well, because
hmm
now the brand, the game, the whatever the PFP is community driven. It's not this bullshit. I'm gonna spend $100 million to up my click through rate 0.3%. Right?
hmm
Um, it is truly a bunch of niche communities loving something, sharing passion about something, becoming friends, uh, and hopefully building friendships, lifetime friendships, and beyond. And that's just
hmm
such a cool concept.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, what brought MMOs together, right? Like something like WoW, where
Yeah.
it became very apparent that it's about community. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that technology is providing us like to do stuff like this,
Yeah,
like to do live interviews and it be immediate and sincere and fresh.
right.
That's it's fantastic. Hey Max,
So
how are you doing over there?
I was about to
Yeah, that's
say.
what I was
So
literally about to say that
Max.
same thing. Max, thoughts?
I'm enjoying this conversation. And speaking of friendship, it's been really cool. Sticks and I have been friends for, I don't know, 10, 11 years, but we really reconnected making this game together. And so that's been just an incredible aspect of
Mhm.
this because we're so similar in our upbringing and how we view the world and how we view games that it's been the most beautiful collaboration that I've had in my professional life. And I'm really grateful to be working with you, buddy. Your
Mm.
work is inspiring, and we're well on our way to making a hit. So yeah, since we last left off, we had our mint, and that was a free mint for the public, and we were on your show the night of our mint. So I think we were both just exhausted, and
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that's right. I didn't
I
realize it
have
I
was the
not.
night of
forgot
our
it
mint.
was the night of the mint. That is correct.
Yes.
Mm.
And I have
Oh.
not left my office since then. So thanks to my wife for occasionally bringing me food.
Wow.
Appreciate it. And we've been hard at work. We've launched our token, Drachma. We've launched the Exordium, which is our technology tree. And so we're making a strategy game, a 4X strategy game like
Yeah.
Civilization. And so, and all good 4X games, and it's such a niche area, but it's such a game that's perfect for the blockchain,
Can you
or a
explain that? Because
genre
I
that's
feel like
perfect.
some people might not know what 4X strategy game means.
Exactly. So, 4X game is a game where you basically it's a game of conquest where it's a long play game, it's a slow play game where your job is to exterminate everyone on the map, and that's one of the X's in 4X. And so, if you've ever played a game like Civilization, if you've played a game like Warcraft, Age of Empires, StarCraft, games like that is the game type of games that really light me up. And I knew that a tokenized version of this game, of a strategy game, would be incredibly immersive, and that's what we're
Mhm.
here to do, making Citadel. And it's really perfect for the blockchain. There's a ton of games that are being made right now that are terrible fits for blockchain. Blockchains, you have blocks every X amount of seconds, sometimes every minute. You have to have a game that's architected to work on a blockchain and be immersive. And there's a few types that will work, but strategy games, I think, slow play strategy games, I think, are the genre of games that most align to what is possible with blockchain right now. And so we've launched our tech tree. In a couple weeks, we're going to launch our second NFT, the pilot. You see a couple early examples on our avatars, and then we're going to launch something really crazy. We're launching a post-human political system called the warlord technocracy. And so this is a
Yes.
political system that Styx and I have invented, and it is the most corrupt political system we could imagine. We just kept trying to make it worse and more dystopian and filled with the worst things about every single political system that's ever existed. And we threw it all into our game and made it, and then just 10x it. Like there's corruption, there's bribery, there's extortion, there's overthrow, there's insurgency. It's going to be nuts, and it's all for money. It's all for our token. So we're going to
That's
I
launch
so
that in a
love
good.
it.
couple of weeks, and I'm really lit up by it. So that's kind of what we've been up to. And
Were
then,
were you
sorry,
just
I'll
inspired by Game of Thrones for that? I feel
pause.
like you just described basically how that whole thing worked.
Yeah, I am watching the new one. I think it's incredible.
Oh, all right.
I
Oh.
I'm with
haven't
you.
watched
We'll
the
have to
new
talk
one
about that
yet.
later.
Yeah. So kind of similar question for you though, Max. Like I am really interested because you've been in the game world as well too. Um, kind of like your highlights and maybe lowlights through that process of what I mean, other than you not ever sleeping and your wife bringing you food in your office. Um, Similar sentiments that Sticks had and on just uh, the experience of being able to launch your own project on a Web3 in a Web3 ecosystem?
Yeah, sure, sure. I remain really resolved to the fact that I believe tokenization of games is going to be the next 10x in gaming. It's going to be, if you think of the NFL and if you think of what fantasy sports did for the NFL,
Right.
that 10x their audience. Now, NFL was always a fun and exciting sport, but that's when NFL became 5 times bigger than baseball. That's when it blew up, was fantasy sports. And I am incredibly confident that tokenization in games, and when I say tokenization, I mean like actual digital tokens like currencies,
Mhm.
but also NFTs, are going to transform games, and people are not going to look back. So that's kind of been my thesis all along. Someone needs to make the hit game. We've had games that came along like Axie, that were I love Axie. I think it was super immersive and or excuse me, I think it was super innovative, but it wasn't a fun game to play.
Right.
And
Yeah.
no one has made a fun game on the blockchain yet, and that's
Yep.
what we're trying to do. And there's so much friction to get over. When you're making a game on the blockchain, you just can't do a traditional game. And so we have
Yeah.
spent every minute of the last probably 10 months thinking of a way we can create an immersive game on the blockchain that people are going to have fun playing. And as Stick said a couple minutes or maybe 20 minutes ago, we know the key to that is to make you feel things, make you connect you
Yeah.
to something in your life, connect you to some form of happiness that you've had, like whether it be 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago, just to make you feel when you enter the game that you're immersed in the game, that you're part of this strange world that we call Citadel. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think we're grinding away at it, and I'm really excited for the next
Yeah.
probably the next 6 months.
Hmm.
I think that first of all, I love what you just said right there. That's fantastic, and Mikey, we definitely have to clip that for sure.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I wrote that timestamp down
yeah, that was
immediately.
fantastic. Very well said. And just to you know, I think of just to express what you're really trying to do, because I don't think people understand the full. This is like you ever notice how all the things that are really good for you food wise taste awful, and all the things that are really bad for you food wise taste really good?
Hmm.
What I'm hearing from you is you're trying to make the broccoli taste like the pizza. And it's the conundrum of the ages, right? And here's what's crazy is you're doing it, right? You're figuring out a way, because if you solve that, right? If we solve that problem, if the stuff we were supposed to eat tasted like the stuff that we want to eat, health would be easy, right?
Hmm.
We'd all be skinny and fit, right? Um, to do that in the game world and figure that out is really really difficult. And I just think it's really cool, because I think a lot of people might glaze over what you said and just, oh yeah, sure, he's trying to make a fun game and make people feel things, and that's gonna, but it's like you're trying to solve a really big problem that really hasn't been solved well, certainly not in this space, and make it like palpable, right? Because here's the bottom line: if the game is fun, just like Mikey said, there's a lot of gamers who are not a fan of NFTs. They're not a fan of Web3. But I promise you, if you make a fun game, they won't care. They'll join because you made a fun game. Period. It just simply solves the problem. The headache is automatically done when you do that, and I just think that that's a massive thing that shouldn't be skipped over. Because I think a lot of people would just, oh, okay, no big deal. But it's like, no, 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 that's huge.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about Styx's art here because that's the key. That's one of the keys to it is how can we tap into your own imagination? How can we?
Yeah.
That's where it's going to happen, right?
Right.
And how can you look at one of Styx's Citadel? How can you look at one of his pilots and just trigger the imagination? And that's what I think we've tapped into. That's why
Mm.
our community likes what we're doing. That's where people see the potential in what we're doing is because you can see this and it transforms you into this crazy and strange dystopian world. And there's some truth to this world. It's really a dark world, but people can in the back of their minds see how our how we on can end up in this place that's like Citadel. And that is where the feelings come in. And it's really starts with Styx's artwork. And then
Oh,
and our next step is to really strip away all of the things that distract you from diving into your imagination and just let that happen. That's how we make a hit blockchain game. And so we're
Yeah.
starting off with the art. Like if you go to our website, it's a literal Unix terminal. We want everything stripped away
I
from
love that, by
what
the way.
from
And
what
that's
your
thought, right?
imagination wants to tell you about this world.
Yeah.
And so grateful for the 1024 Citadel that Styx has made, because he has invented a world that was only in my head, and we collaborated on it, we talked about it, and he created this incredibly immersive world that really sets your mind ablaze in imagination. And that's how we make a hit game.
Yeah. And dude, you said it there, right? And so this certainly ladders up, and people, like, we have to keep on repeating this, right? And it's back to kind of what we were talking before. There is there's always this, where's the shortcut in life with whatever you do, right? NFTs being no different, right? Everyone really entered this space. I'd say 90%, if not more, entered the space, and they're like, oh, this is the next get rich quick scheme. Like, this is the gold rush, right? And listen, did people make a lot of money over the past year? Absolutely. But what I'm getting at is, this, people, is what a project looks like that you should invest your money. I think we all have been burned enough that are still in this space. By the way, 50% of the people just left because of, the state of it right now. But time and time again, we still have to reiterate, what do you need? I at this point, impeccable artwork, which this is top notch. Founders that have industry knowledge based on the NFT that they are creating, double check there. And then 3, long lasting utility that is not just a gimmick, check there, right? And it's just like, one of the other benefits of being able to do this show is to allow you all to have a platform to convey those messages, but not directly, right? You're doing that by just straight up talking about your passion. You two are so incredibly passionate about games. Styx's artwork is so top notch because it's something he's interested in, loves doing. And then your whole economy, like you said, the token, Maddie and I are 100% with you. The tokenization of gaming is really what I think is going to be the first big innovation in this space. Maybe there'll be security documents and stuff like that. But like, once that happens, and if you can be one of the first, which I think you will be, like, that is a massive shift in the ecosystem, right? So I really just adding on to what you're saying, like, I really appreciate the perspectives and how passionate you are about what you do.
Well, thanks so much. I'm really blessed to be making this game with Styx, and really excited to be here with you all. It's always fun. I can talk about Web3 for days. It is such a
Mm-hmm.
the two of us, just a little story about us. We didn't grow up together, but we grew up in very similar surroundings, rural America, all alone, with nothing but our imagination. And we, I don't know about Styx, but like, just not a lot of money either.
Yeah.
But and from that breeds an incredible ability to just sit with yourself and sit with your imagination and just explore different worlds and explore open worlds. And that's what we're trying to do with Citadel. And I couldn't be more excited about it.
Yeah. And so I wanna kind of go back to this imagination, because you said something interesting, and just another way I wasn't even thinking about it is, again, so cool. There was a very purpose-driven creation of this artwork, which was literally to evoke emotion, which I think you have accomplished. One of the cool things that I think you said in our last conversation, Styx, was that you learned how to speed paint, and that was really one of the things that allowed you to create all of these amazing looking Citadel 101s, right? I would love to hear, what does the process look like for the pilots? Because are you still kind of speed painting technique? You obviously are using photorealistic textures. I'm
Yeah.
assuming you're merging that with Photoshop. Like a deep dive on the pilot creation on from the technical and inspirational standpoint would be fascinating to me.
All right, let's go deep dive then. So the pilots, yeah, there's something I've been experimenting with from the very first sketches that I did way early on, before before I became like the artist. I mean, before I really like I had to. How do I say this? Max was like, Aaron, oh shit, you're too busy, dude, and like you don't have time. And I was like, what? Like, of course I got time. Um, and so I just I just was like, I felt so like drawn to like make this world and this environment and just dove into like what tools do I have? And I have a lot of like 3D experience. I've worked just about every art job there is, and I was like, well, let me just see how far I can take it. And so the pilots are like a combination of like 3D kit bashing stuff that I've made in the past. I'm constantly like looking at um, new ways of bringing things together. So as you said, like it's a lot higher fidelity. I'm doing a lot of like I got a huge texture library of things I've created over the years, and I'm throwing all that together. I'm using a lot of like projection mapping. I'm using Blender. I'm using Photoshop. I'm using Painter materials. I'm using Unreal 5. I'm using whatever I can
Dude.
to get it all made and doing it. And like what I love to do is just like take stuff in a way that's unexpected
Hmm.
and see what I can do with it. And the cool thing I think like that I have to my benefit is that I mentor a lot of artists and I have the opportunity to kind of bounce ideas off things and like, hey, this is something that I'm doing. Um, and as a within that community itself, like what can we do or what do I learn from this to help my friends and colleagues speed up their own processes? You know what I'm saying? So um, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I'm always looking at like not what benefits me, but what benefits the community and what benefits our industry. And so the pilots are like born from that in a lot of ways. And so are the Citadel. Like I was doing more traditional type stuff with the paintings in Citadel of the Citadel, and then I was like, well, what would it look like if I got more 3D and more dimensionality
Mm-hmm.
and started playing with different biomes and how do I really personify these post-human characters that make that it's like I got this idea in my head like they're the algorithms of life that are kind of remnants like the ghost in the machine. Like how do I evoke that in the art?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's all mood, that's all lighting, that's all texture,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? And so my sort of technical process is first of all getting into a trance state. If you ever read like Nikola Tesla and how he would go into the future and imagine what his inventions would be, and then come
Yeah.
back to now and then just create from that space. So I do a lot of that type of
Hmm.
techniques.
Yeah.
And so that way it gets my mind out of the way. Just kind of like, okay, well, um, what would it look like if I just didn't have to think about it and just produced? Like you both were talking about, like why you play games is kind of like get into that trance-like state,
Yeah.
right? And you somehow are able to be in multiple dimensions at one time. Like you're playing the game, and yet you're aware that you're making choices with your fingers on the controller, and then you can pause the game and go get some drinks and then come back and still just dive into that world. And while you're playing that game, you could be thinking about Mario Kart instead and still be playing the game expertly, right? So what is that? What am I getting at with that? Is that with these Citadel and these pilots, I'm like in that space of just like bring in all the influences without a filter. Like, what is this world? What does it feel like? What's the horror of it? You know,
Right.
like Max and I talk about it, and every now and then I'll just paint something really horrible. And like I think this is like what happens after a battle, and they're like doing a doom riot, you know, and they're celebrating. And I'm
Right.
like, why would like post-human machines like be celebrating? You know, why, you know, it's like all these sort of
Mm,
dysfunctional algorithms, which is a
yeah.
comment on humanity,
Yeah.
right? So all this
Absolutely.
is kind of a metaphor, because we both kind of light up talking about this world, and yet it's I have like some buddies are like, "You're talking post-apocalyptic horror. Like, how are you so lit up by that?" I'm like, there's a fear that we're in some way, some choice. Oh, you know, it's better to like create something like that we get to in a virtual sense rather than IRL. I'm saying,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. It's like let's explore. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of things that happens in movies become reality. But
Right.
at the same time, yes, right. It is well, another way to go with this. We actually had a phenomenal conversation Tuesday night with a guy who does cybersecurity, and he worked
mm,
for the government and like high level hardcore cybersecurity shit um who is now in the web3 space with a security company. But we had this whole really great conversation about balance, right?
mhm,
And martial arts teaches you that. I think you
Hmm.
learn a lot of life lessons that lead you to believe. We even use the analogy of Matt and I, right? Maddie and I are yin and yang. Our mindsets are a little bit different, but we complement each other well, which creates a very balanced perspective for our show.
mhm,
And what's interesting about what you're creating is you get to now really visualize what happens when there isn't balance. What happens
mhm,
when horrible shit does happen, but it's least in a play space. Because the other thing I'm trying to get at is even the most amazing people in the world that are quote unquote good people, they still have a dark side. And
mhm.
people are still interested in what that might look like, and that's kind of exciting. That can be exciting for a lot. It's exciting for me to think about, right? Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Totally,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Any thoughts there, Maddie, or can Sticks keep on going on creation?
Yeah, keep on going. I was doing some moderating in the chat.
Okay, cool. And I think kind of where you were going, those Sticks, and it's just going to follow up is you were talking there a lot about how you get in the mindset, or what are you thinking about when you're creating. The other thing that I think is interesting is the actual technical side, right?
Mm,
So it seems like you have cultivated an insane skill set over your career by using all of these different programs. um, is there a part of this creation process that you and blindly is not the right word, but I don't know what to say, of more of you just, hey, let's see what the tech creates. I'm going to throw some textures into XYZ program and see what outputs. Do you use that as well, or is it really more this narrative, emotion driven creative process?
that's a really good question.
Thank you. I
When I
pride
bring,
myself on my questions.
yeah, that's why we keep coming back, right, with the questions. So the reason to kind of step back a little bit, the reason I started off with the mindset or the lack of mindset sometimes, just depending on where I'm at, is to me as an artist, it's the foundation. It's the way to plug in. Every technology is a tool, right,
Mhm.
for the expression.
Yeah.
And the intention behind, like my intention when I paint a Citadel or do a pilot, that I imagine whoever owns it is going to find me on the street at some point, or I'm going to have a conversation with them and they're going to ask me, like, what were you feeling when you created this? Because it is moving to me, right? It's something about this experience, this piece of art has
Hmm.
got some feeling behind it. And because when I was younger, I would go to a museum and I would see, people just going from one painting to another painting and then talk about how exhausted they were and they didn't know why.
Mm.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Good
So
description.
so just follow with me on this. So whenever you sit with a painting, especially like old masters paintings, if you really look at the description and understand what it took to paint this huge, 8 foot by 10 foot painting, is like years in the making, an oil painting, right? And these masters had like uh, the ability to understand light and
Yep.
keep this fixated emotion to convey in that piece. And
Hmm.
why do people get exhausted when they go to a museum? Because you're sitting with this concentrated, focused emotion called a painting or a piece of art, a sculpture. And if you don't sit with it, you're just getting bombarded by that concentrated energy over and over again. I don't mean to be all sounding metaphysical. It's
Yeah.
just why does art move us? Right?
No, no. This is fantastic. I'm loving what you're saying.
Thank you. And so whenever I sit to create these works of art, I just before each piece, I'll sketch it out. I'll think about like what faction it belongs to, but then I imagine like how many hands will this pass through over its history. And I'll imagine like this piece of artwork like punching them in the gut of feeling, if you will, that they are moved on some level if they just sit with it. Because I've done this is one of the things that Max and I kind of
Yeah.
stumbled on when we were revealing these, is like he's like, hey, can you just talk about the artwork? And I'm like, sure, no problem. And then some people are like, well, isn't this all AI stuff? And I'm like, no, I painted it,
Hmm.
and I can talk you through like the the structure of it, the lighting, the palette, what was inspiring to me when I painted this one, what was going through my mind, you know, and
That's incredible.
so yeah, that's what we kind of stumbled on, because I was like, well, yeah, I painted it, so of course I can talk about it.
Yeah.
And so it was a differentiator, and it's something that like I just didn't think about personally. I was just like, well, yeah, I love breaking down artwork, because I help artists every day uncover their own stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I help them get out of their own stories so that they can get plugged in, so they can create art on time and on budget in my IRL life. And so
Mm.
I have based on my own conditioning and my own sort of like interests and whatnot, really value this process, these rituals, this sacred space of creating. And, you know, whenever someone picks up a Citadel, and we've had some community members like print them up and like put them on their walls, and they just love looking at them, and it's great. Like when I first was doing Citadels, I'd do a batch of them and I'd show them to Max, and he's just I was just like, "Which style do you like?" This is like the first few times. Remember that, Max?
Totally.
Yeah, and I was like, "Which one? Which batch do you like out of these?" And he's like, "We should put all these up right now." And I'm like, "No, these are just sketches." Like I kind of freaked out a little bit because Max is very immediate,
Hmm.
right? And so as I went, and I'm getting to the process, so just bear with me on this. So
No, you're
No,
good. You're good. This
no,
is good. I'm
man.
writing notes down for
This
questions,
is
so that because these are great.
and
amazing.
so so to me, like this is the kind of thing that uh, a lot of people, unless they create art or create anything, it takes practice. It takes a thick skin because anyone can say anything about your artwork.
Sure.
On many of the games that I worked on, especially more of the high profile ones, I would have artists and I'd bring programmers over to get critiques, or I get producers, and the artists are like, "Why the hell are you bringing them over? They're not artists." I'm like, "They play games. We're creating a piece of artwork that people are diving into and dissolving into for 40 hours or 200 hours, right? So it's well worth like putting anyone in front of it. It's not, if Da Vinci or Michelangelo would just bring people over to look at their stuff, why can't we? You know? And so being ready for that exposure and that vulnerability is like, as you as creators for YouTube, right? You get all
Hmm.
sorts of people that have an opinion. And when I'm
Sure.
sure when you first started, you're like, get a first like not so great comment. And you're
I
like,
mean, the bots were rough, man. They were hard on us. They were
I like that. The NPCs were shaking their fist at you.
That honestly is the
exactly.
more demoralizing part. Months of nobody and bots trying to sell us some, I don't know, health pill or
Whatever.
Get
something.
followers. Get 50,000 followers. Click this
Sure.
link. Yeah, it was
Sure.
anyway.
No,
And
but yeah, I
so
totally get the point you're going for.
Yeah,
yeah,
no, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And so with that, in creating Citadel, I just like dedicated like Max and I would often just say like, we're just gonna make this in like I really don't I'm not gonna care about the marketing. I'm not gonna care about anything other than just putting everything into each piece of work and utilizing whatever I have on hand to bring something to it. And with the pilots, like I'm bringing much more fidelity and personality. I would say not more, but it's just a different vibe.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking about like each one of these, like what would their voice be?
Yeah.
You know, why would they? What is their story? And some of them are very like disfigured, and some of them like I feel like they have the algorithms and remnants of humanity, so they try to like mimic it. Some have more humanity than others.
Hmm.
Some are like clearly a mech, just kind of like ready
Yeah.
to kill you. So it's or like a bloody C3PO, like a vid with a ancient inscription on its third eye. So there's all sorts of like just different approaches, um, and I'm just diving deep into it. And because they're portraits and stuff, like it's a little bit easier for me to have a standard composition that I can work from, and then play with lighting, play with atmosphere, and take it through a bunch of different rendering systems and see what I come up with. And to your point, like, is it a narrative or am I just randomly putting stuff together to see what happens? It's a
Hmm.
little bit of both, but I think it starts with the intention,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like I'm really clear on the intention that I want to create something that moves somebody on some level, and they may be like
Yeah.
disgusted. It's some feeling though,
Yeah, disgust is a feeling, right?
right? And
Yeah.
so, and to start a conversation, and that to me has like been really cool. And doing these reveals is just like talking through the artwork and like hearing from the people who own these Citadel and that will own these pilots, and like hearing them kind of go, oh, like wow, like I'm so glad I got this, or kind of showing it off. And it's like, wow, I've done early on in my life, I did lots of painting uh, and had shows and did lots of different types of artwork and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
it's so cool to have that like response now, and it's not like it's all immediate. Even if people like have an ab reaction to it and are calling it something else, or whatever. And to me, it's like awesome, thank you, you know,
Hmm.
and use that.
Right.
So
Man. So
is
a
that
couple
helpful?
thoughts. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Love it.
I said,
No,
is that helpful?
that is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
and your answer, um, I think was kind of what I thought, right? Like it's you're clearly skilled at what you do, but you also have used a wide variety of programs. Um, but what's interesting about what you said, though, is, and this is what I was taught in design school, and I think this is honestly what um, is being able to teach design in the correct way in my mind is exactly what you're saying, but you're doing it through art, which is there is just random occurrences where amazing things are made, but in my mind, it's just so much more meaningful if you start the creation process with an intention to do something, uh, which really is in my mind the base of like where subjective art deviates from graphic design, right? If you really boil down what graphic design is, that is visual communication telling, right? You're
Yep.
visually communicating with people to produce an outcome, an emotion, or get them to do something, right? Um, so I love your interpretation of that, and I assumed it was a combination of both, and that's what you said. But really cool to hear your thoughts on it, Maddie. I'll let you go because I know I saw you writing down a bunch of stuff. So I love. By the way, Max and Sticks, I know when Maddie's engaged because he's doing this like half smile thing, but then it goes into this death stare where it looks like at any moment he can murder
I don't do
somebody.
it on purpose. I
And
apologize.
then he goes into the half smile, and it's just this back and forth. But I know he's like intensely listening. So go for it, Maddie.
Yeah. They call it resting homicide face.
Matt has coined
So
that one.
yes. Um, so first thing is this, and I'm talking to two artists at least, right, between you and Mikey, and it's interesting because I remember learning about um, literature and writing, and learning that good writers do the exact same thing you're talking about, right? They make you feel emotions, but to do that with words, you have to help the reader feel sensory type things, whether it be, so how does something feel? How does it smell? Um, not just what they see, right? What do they hear? And not just the immediate things, but what are the background things, And it puts people in a world. And of course, the people who are famous for doing this are the legends, right? And so one of the things I think is interesting though is that they are limited to just words. And then the idea that, a picture's 1,000 words, right, is when you described what you're doing when you make these paintings, it made me remember that. And why I think it's so important is because when you see good movies or whatnot, movies are going to use not only what the camera sees, but they're going to use a soundtrack, right? They're using audio components that immerse you in this world. And the best ones make you forget that you're actually sitting in a chair at home, and they put you in that world, right? And what you said with the art museum analogy, I think was fantastic because that was probably the best way that I've heard that articulated. Why is it that you're like drained after doing that? And it's because you've been put through this experience. And an artist that can do that, that's such a that's such a powerful skill set. And I'm not an artist, so my brain doesn't work that way, right? So I've never been able to really understand how you get art that looks like this. But there's so much detail, and just for example, the backgrounds, you know, and how something is blurry in the background, but even that coloring and the themes adds to what's going on. And for a moment, it's almost like you can look at these and, like you said, like a bloody C3PO or whatever it might be, or a mech. Um, you forget for a moment that it's not real. And I think that that is one of the greatest, I think, in my opinion, a compliment, I guess, that somebody can hear as a creator because, um, when James Cameron creates these worlds on camera, and you forget that, like, there actually is no planet called Pandora. You know what I'm saying? With blue people walking around. Like when you're watching that movie, they did such a good job with not only the script but the motion capture and everything that did. For a second you kind of forget that it's like, oh wait, this is literally all in a computer. Like none of this is real. You know what I mean? But it's
Right.
just your brain forgets that for a moment, and it goes back to what we were saying about having fun. Is this escape? You put me in another place and let my brain turn off and just experience fun. Or and whatever, even if it's not fun. No, I'm gonna say fun because in the same way people like horror movies,
Mhm.
you know, it's not an emotion most people want to feel, but why do they keep going back and like they love that because they wanna feel something, and like you were talking about that dopamine, and I just think it's really cool that you started with the feeling and then you essentially worked your way backwards and created art to represent it. And
Absolutely.
I see the same thing also, not just in the pilots, honestly, in the Citadels themselves. I mean, it's every one of those things looks like it could be on some planet somewhere in the galaxy. You know what I mean? Which is just amazing to me. And I really like the art museum analogy. I think that's a great way. I hope you keep using that because that really clicked for me and resonated. And I was like, that is so true. You've you're draining something. There's something in the brain that's there's a muscle that's flexing, whether it's a curiosity or a creativity or an imagination muscle that I don't really know how to describe. Um, but it's being used, and it's just cool to see that with this artwork. And so that's really the main thing. I really like that you put that together. I think it's a great way of explaining how you get to the artwork you get to.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah,
So
it's
Mike, that was it. I was writing a lot of things about that, really more because I'm going to steal them in the future when I describe things.
well, it really what you're touching on too goes with fun, and it's something that is very much integrated into our unconscious minds and our and are wired in our brains, which is storytelling.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and the thing with storytelling is that whether it's a horror story or a sci-fi story or whatever, there's an engagement, there's a rhythm to it.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of these pieces of work, it's not just my work or their work, it's just the body of art that is created in whatever form that it is. And this goes to what we were talking about NFTs, that there's a dimensionality to it. And my intention and our goal is to bring that dimensionality in such a way that it's very tangible and very, if you have a heart and a brain and can look at something and feel it,
Mhm.
in whether or not you can articulate it or not, or whether you like it or not, but there's something that activates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's like something worth noting and something that I strive to, how do I put this? Um, Reveal in such a way that you look at the world differently. Like you start rendering the world differently because of this story that unlocks in front of you.
Mm.
Like think about all the times in your past where a phrase or a word or an experience happens with you and it unlocks something where you start looking at the world so differently.
Right.
It's a lot
Mhm.
of times that's in the form of an art or a relationship
Yeah.
or a mystical experience or something that is outside of the norm. And I believe like as artists, a lot of our purpose is to provide those keys to unlock those different dimensions.
I love that, man. That's another really cool way of putting it. Max, do you have anything to add to this conversation? Because if no, no, no,
No.
no, I'm not saying that in a bad way. Because if not, I'm going to ask one more final creative question. But I am fascinated to see what your answer
Yeah.
is going to be on this. But I want to give
Yeah.
you the floor, Max, if you want to input anything on what we've been talking about the last 10, 15 minutes.
No, no. Keep on this note. I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. So I'm going even bigger on this question, right? I
Mhm.
Now I would call myself, Matt called me an artist. I don't really see myself as an artist. I went to design school, right?
You're creative though.
Yeah, so this is my question, right? And this is, I'm interested to hear your feedback. Sticks is a lot of people that aren't creative will or call themselves not creative. Will look at your artwork and be like, how in the hell did he ever even think about that or create that, right?
Mhm.
I am a firm believer that if the human mind is an incredible thing.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if I could ever make artwork exactly like yours, but I feel like if I wanted to really be creative and I was that passionate about it, I would learn all those programs and try my damnedest to make something cool.
Mhm.
My question for you is, how much of your skill set that you've acquired over your lifetime came from what I would call inherent goodness? And the analogy I always use is Tiger Woods, right? Why Tiger Woods is one of, if not the best golfer of all time, is he worked harder than anybody else, and I think people have an inherent knack for something, right? His was for
Mhm.
golf. He just so happened to work very hard at it. That's why he is
Mhm.
the best of all time, right?
Mhm.
Um, do you think that anybody that sees or is inspired by this artwork, if they tried hard enough, they could do it? Or is there some inherent creative cell or juice in people that make them more or better of a creative?
So you're asking me if I drink the blood of unicorns? Is that what you're asking me?
Exactly.
I
I'm
will not
very
confirm nor
interested.
deny it.
I was gonna say YouTube bans certain content. Careful now.
I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
very
Drinking unicorn
interested
blood. I don't think they like that.
uh,
No, no, I don't do any of that
because you
stuff.
have your life experiences brought you to this, right? So I'm very interested to hear your kind of concept on this, and almost like even talking to the youth of America, right? Like, it's you. If you're told very young you're not creative, well, you're not going to be freaking creative, right? You just stop
Yeah,
being creative.
yeah.
So, like, what are your thoughts on this whole concept and
So kind of
principle?
like a nature nurture thing, Mike. You mean?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
Hmm.
I think I've framed it up enough that do you understand what I'm trying to get at, Sticks, or am I just
I,
losing
I,
you?
I do. I do understand where you're coming from on that. And this is something I'm very passionate about because I believe that two things. One, that we're all NPCs to other people or other single players,
Mm,
unless we start the conversation and start recognizing that we could be co-op playing, right?
Hmm. I like it. I like it.
I
And
like that.
so my thoughts on this is that I do a lot of work with like at-risk youth. I do a lot of work with just humans. I'm here to help humans, and I feel like we all have this inherent ability to evolve, to broaden our perspective, and to engage in what we, for lack of a better word, what our purpose may be. And the thing that I really like to, when I talk about my artwork and the type of stuff I've done in real life, where I've done huge series of works, and people are like, how is it that you painted this every day for X amount of years and built this body of work, right? Um, I'm talking outside of Citadel.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the thing that I like to get to is that when I first started the one particular project, I purposely did it on lined paper and a ballpoint pen and made it very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And every day over 6 years, I evolved. I just kept building on that, and to show like kids or whatever, like, hey, look, this is the first drawing, and they're like, oh, I could do that. I'm like, yeah, right. And here's a painting I did in an hour and a half, and I mimicked it off of like something from the Sixtine Chapel, but it's actually an octopus, in a
Right.
Renaissance style. As an example, it wasn't an octopus, but for the sake of this
Right.
conversation.
Sure.
And so the point being is that yes, if someone puts the time and attention and utilizes that time and attention to create something,
Yeah.
there's so many tools to do that. What I like to encourage people is to inquire into the nature of what they believe to be true in the first place. Start with that foundation of like, what's limiting you right now? Inquire into that because it's all a house of cards, honestly. If you inquire into any kind of belief system or structure, it's just made up. It's just that's why I got in the game industry because I can invent any job I want to do and just do it.
Sure.
Mm,
There's no rule sets other than the ones that I have imposed upon myself.
right.
So, like, even when you were talking about, well, I'm not really an artist, but I'm a designer, and he's
Right.
like, well,
Right.
you're creative. You're revealing all these like unspoken rule sets that
Mm-hmm.
hold you in a certain space and a label.
Right.
I believe that you're way more than the words that people tell you that you are,
Mm-hmm.
and even more so than the words that you tell yourself.
Right. Yeah.
And so
That's
to me, it's like so important to just when you're with people and they're like, "Oh my God, I wish I could do that." I'm like, "Well, what is it that you wish you could do?"
right.
And if they're like, "Oh, I hadn't really thought about it." I'm like, "Well, you got 3 minutes right now. Let's think about it. I'm with you."
Start there.
Because like out of the billions of people on the planet, I'm here talking with you two guys and Max, who's a guy too, right?
Right.
We're all here together. I'm not really thinking about like anyone else or the past or the future, right? I'm just talking with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come from that space and whether you're a creator or not, and just being with, wow, like there's a lot of talk like, oh, be in the present moment. What does that mean? It's still a concept,
Right.
right? But if you're just honestly engaged when like whenever you're helping someone work out, for instance, Maddie, right?
Mhm.
You have to be there with them, otherwise they get hurt,
Sure.
right? When you're playing a game, you have to be present and engage until you pause and do something else. So the point being with all that I'm getting at is that yes, anyone can create masterworks. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes dedication. But it like Tiger Woods, like he had a father that was like, wow, like you could be a really great golfer. Picasso, his dad was an artist. He's just like, dude, you need to, like, if you want to be a great artist, you got to practice.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's people that came out of nowhere that are doing stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Max and I came from very humble beginnings.
Right.
I grew up in a small town in like Texas,
Yeah.
and so, uh, and I didn't even speak like a Texan. So I had a lot going against me,
Mm-hmm.
growing up. Even my family's like, why'd you talk so strange? I don't understand. Like, where'd you learn to talk like that? You know what I'm saying? So,
I was like, I don't know. I'm
but I,
talking like I think I should talk.
exactly. But the point being is that we all have that ability to kind of inquire and to recognize like, wow, like all these other things are belief systems and
Yeah.
like and why am I making this choice? Am I really looking at why am I making this choice to make this piece of artwork?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm choosing to kind of go deeper into it.
Yeah.
Like I hear Max's ideas about this world and I'm like, let me just lean deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna shut off my phone. I'm gonna delete all my social media. I'm just gonna like just dive in and just paint and see what comes out of that.
Interesting. I love it. And again, you mimic my thoughts as well. I think it really is like you said, I think perfectly. It's what we've told we are, or
Mhm.
what we've in our mind coined ourselves as who we are, what we believe we are. But if you hammer down and you're passionate enough, I mean, we use we use the same kind of and I talk about this with this show, right? Like we joke about streaming for uh, multiple years to bots, and I mean, we streamed for over 2 years, and we had 150 followers on Twitch, and within 3 months, we had thousands because of
Mhm.
just the NFT craze, right place, right time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But what were we doing that whole time? We were practicing, right? We were sharpening the
Exactly.
sword. We were learning. We were growing.
Yep.
And that is it's just so invaluable to be good or do anything extraordinary. Go ahead,
And
Manny.
it's giving yourself
Oh, go ahead,
permission.
Sticks. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just giving yourself permission to like, let me just test it out. Let me just try it. Like I tell people like no one needs to know. Like that's why I use the phrase NPC a lot. Like I was working with this one group of people and I was like, what are you really concerned about? And they're like, well, I just don't want to be made fun of or I don't want people to think a certain way. I go, how do you even know what they're gonna do?
Right.
Yeah.
Like where are you getting this from? And they're like, well, I just imagine it. I'm like, well, imagine something else.
I like that. That's an answer. Just
Yeah. Well,
imagine something else.
yeah. Well, I think you also said like how they even know. I mean, who says you have to show it to them?
That's what I'm
You
saying,
can.
right? Like I don't
Step number
expose
1 does not have to be with an audience. Step number
no,
100 doesn't have to be with an audience.
exactly. And you don't have to explain shit to anybody, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Like where's that rule come from?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think one of the cool or beautiful things that you said too is I actually because it's very what is I think super impactful about being a creator or being able to visualize things is we definitely are visual people by nature. I mean, proven by how much everybody loves to just talk in memes and gifs opposed to actually sending texts.
Yeah.
So your strategy of, hey, look at my original ballpoint pen drawing, and then here's what I did later on in life, like that's super impactful, man. And if you can get
Sure.
that simple message across somebody's mind, and it doesn't have to be art, right? It's just like changing your perspective on how do you grow, really. That's what you're trying to
Well,
say.
I like when I talk with like when I go to schools and talk or things like that, I always start with just your foundation, like how are you communicating?
Mm-hmm.
What are the stories that you're telling yourself?
Mm-hmm.
To and it gets back to that inquiring. Like once you inquire and stop it, like in science we have it all the time. There's a control group and an experimental group,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
right? We have that inbuilt in our consciousness as humans. Like we can watch our thoughts come up, but they're changing. We can see our feelings, they come up and change all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I always point out to like people I mentor, like, hey, like you have a part in you that's unchanging. It's not a metaphysical thing, it's just truth. Like, how would you know if you're changing if you didn't have a part of you that's unchanging?
Mm-hmm.
Science, right? But we just don't think about it. It's not taught like as in school. Like, oh wow, like we hear like, oh, I got this storm of emotion. I'm all like been out of shape because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, there's a part of you that's like not because you wouldn't know that you were changed. That you were feeling that
Right.
way.
It's a
Right.
frame of
I mean,
reference. It's a
it's
frame of reference, which gives
exactly,
people grounding, right?
exactly. So when I'm doing art and whenever I am engaging with people, I come from that space of just like, what would it? I always ask myself, what would it look like if I just came from that place of silence and just painted from there? What would it look like if I just spoke from my heart and not pretend to be anything other than myself?
Right.
And not, I didn't had no agenda what I'm going to talk about tonight. I had no idea what questions you would be asking us, you know.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like being present and just being real. I'm like, yeah, like this is my it's not like it's magic. It's just taking action.
Ooh, I like that one. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
So,
taking the first step. No, I agree with you. So man, we've said a lot here. So I would push back this way. And it's not even push back. Maybe it's just like come along beside you. Um Words matter. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah,
And our
for sure.
reference frame matters, right? Because you're right, if you don't have you can't know you're changing unless you have a point that's unchanging. But again, everything's relative, right? Um,
Mhm.
I mean, to the world, to everyone on camera, Mike's not really moving, right? But to the center of the earth, he's moving at about 1,000 miles an hour. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To the sun, he's moving much faster than that, right? And so it's kind of like where is your reference frame? And I think it's important for people to be grounded in that first, and then also to recognize just because the word creative is used doesn't mean it has to be. See, we filter through our own perceptions what I meant by creative.
Yeah.
See, I would push back at this. The idea that creativity is only something that artists can use, I think, is wrong, right? The
Right.
two
Absolutely.
the two hemispheres of the brain, if you have a more artistic side and then a more analytical side, right? Um, some of the greatest people from the analytical side of thinking are some of the most creative people ever. I mean, look at Einstein. You know what I
Right.
mean? You don't
Absolutely.
you don't come up with new theories. You don't come up with new math. You don't come up with relativity, right? You don't come up with those things until you have mastered the fundamentals of what math is and what physics is. And I
Hmm.
think it's interesting because anybody who masters a craft, and of course we've been reading this book Mastery, but like when you've mastered something, that is the ultimate sign that you can expand the creativity in that subject to the
Hmm.
highest level,
Hmm.
whatever that is, right? And so, and to do that, as you said, you have to take step number one. And if you take step number one and then you get to step number 10,000, eventually you will master a skill. And somewhere along that line, your brain stops having to think about the skill and can start thinking about what else. And it's that what else that's beautiful. It's that what else that creativity
Mm-hmm.
grows in and fosters in. And I
Mm-hmm.
just think that that doesn't necessarily have to be with a pen and paper, right? Or
Right.
should, in terms of art or on a typewriter or on a keyboard. It can
Right.
be on an instrument. It could be, but it can also be in an equation, right? It could be in
Right.
anything, you know.
Hmm.
Yep.
And so I just think that people maybe we filter it when somebody says you're not creative. Well, you're absolutely creative in whatever you're passionately chasing and doing. You
Right.
can be creative in,
Right.
um, and so I think that's kind of my overriding thoughts there. I think this is a fantastic discussion because the fact that you're mentoring youth, this is a part that's missed, right? I think Mike,
Hmm.
said it well. There's a lot of kids who are told at some point, whether it be a teacher or a guidance counselor or a parent or a friend or somebody, they're told, "Ooh, you're not good at this," or "Hey, I know you want to be an astronaut, but you're not smart enough, or you're not, good at math, or whatever it might
Right.
be." And it's like the words are very powerful. Making sure that we can keep people. I mean, what is it? I think that the concept is called divergent thinking, right? Thinking
Mm-hmm.
outside of the
Hmm.
box. And it's
Hmm.
like 4 to 5 year olds score in the 98th percentile in terms of
Hmm.
they're at genius level when it comes to divergent thinking. But yet by 17 years old, only 2% are at the genius level. So what happened? You know, did
Right.
we get dumber? No. We were just told these things over and over and believe them. And
Right.
anything we can do to try to maybe combat that in a way where it's like, hey, let people free their mind, right? I mean, so make that jump in the matrix or recognize that there is no spoon is going to be a benefit for all. That's kind
Right.
of my thoughts.
Hmm.
Right.
Thank you for that. That's really. I don't. To be clear, like it didn't seem like a pushback at all.
Yeah,
It's
that's why I
really.
said come alongside.
Yeah.
I was
It's
realizing
It
like, this is not.
it was
it's
additive
really
to
a
the
harmony,
conversation. Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like because to me, like when you resonate like that, like you feel the stirring of this conversation, right? It's like it's all about
yeah,
elevation,
sure.
and that's every angle that I'm going from, whether it be the work or the art or the family, all these type of things. It's all about
Hmm.
like I was just talking about this today. I'm like going through a bunch of reviews at work, and every one of my artists that I'm like helping them with their careers, and I'm like, think broader. Think about how you can help the industry,
Right.
not just your own career path.
Right.
Like, yeah, you can like learn whatever program. Like, think about all the people who learned Flash back in the day.
Yeah,
Like,
I did.
Yeah,
right? Of course you did, because you had to, because it was like what was everyone was doing. They needed a splash page,
Right.
but it's not even supported anymore.
No.
So what does that teach us as
Yeah.
a profession, right? You have to constantly be changing. You have to constantly be open.
yeah,
And to your point, and you said it so beautifully, is that from the geniuses at age 4 and 5 to like the 1% now, it's really about what did they buy into, what was
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sold to them as a
Mm-hmm.
concept.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like that's why I say self inquiry is like one of the most powerful tools that I wield as an artist, as a human being. or a post-human being, depending on
Yeah.
which dimension I'm in. But it's still, uh, it's so important to like just stop for a moment and pause and just inquire into like, what am I really acting on right now?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it something that my parents told me, or
Mm-hmm.
that kind of need of nurture or getting attention, or is it something that I'm, am I self-contained?
Right.
Do I have a choice in the matter? Right. So I know I've gone on about this type of stuff, but I just want to emphasize how really that's the foundation of this
Mm.
artwork. And whenever I sit with it, I'm like, I inquire with it. And like, that's why I work on it right before the reveals. Like, I'll be doing some brush strokes on everything and kind of fine tuning lighting up until we reveal, because
Right.
I'm constantly going back to it. And
Right.
my kind of back to the creative process. It's like I'll paint a bunch and then I'll put them to the side. I'll paint another bunch, and then I constantly bring them back to my awareness into the present moment and kind of go, what feels right here? Who's gonna, what person is gonna resonate with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That
honestly,
is
How?
amazing.
to come full circle from like what Maddie was saying in the original, like your creative style and your process, uh, you know, you're close to mastery, if not mastery, because you're so attuned to the different tools and the different styles and color theory and texture and all of these things that
Hmm.
you've been talking about. You can now you don't have to put process into like, oh, what's the tertiary color palette I want to use. Like, you just inherently know this, and you can do exactly what you said you were doing, which is you're just going to sit with this painting and try to evoke an emotion. And all of the other stuff is secondary. That's your primary goal. And that's why I think these things are just so freaking, not freaking, so fucking awesome.
Mm,
Well said.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I want to bring something up really quick because Max has been so quiet, and I feel like he's been plotting his next takeover with the faction. So I want to, what's going
That's
on?
exactly what I'm doing, buddy.
I know you are. I know how you're thinking right now. You're like, oh, great. Like, Styx is distracted right now. I can start moving some drachma around and
If
get
you
some
only
things.
knew, if you only knew, yes, I am plotting your demise as you speak.
No, I can see you taking notes. Like, oh, here's an Achilles heel.
I'm
No, but
enjoying this, man, because there's an artist in all of us, and just like seeing, and I think you and I both agree that if you just do what you love and you just grind and grind
Mm-hmm.
for decades, you're going to be great at it. And so it's like whatever genre it is, whatever we're talking about, whether it's programming or swimming or surfing or art, like if you're passionate about something and you grind for decades, you're going to be great at it. And it's so
Yep.
cool to
yeah,
see what you've been able to do because it comes from such a place of originality. There's nothing in Web 3, there's nothing in Web 2 like the pilot and the Citadel that you have made. It's just original and
right.
so inspired by that, and it inspires me to make us to make an original game, like
Yeah.
to make something like is not out there. And I would rather fail 100 times making something original than succeed making a ripoff. And we could
Yes.
very well fail with Citadel, but we're gonna make something original. That is for sure.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
100%. And that's what I think is going to ultimately drive the space for. I mean, you want to talk about the space being at nauseum with derivatives that are just, what are they?
Hmm.
What derivative to me means you're just finding a quick way to make a dollar. Um,
Yep.
But how
and
can you make dollars now with that? I mean, like that's the how the community's changed,
mm,
hasn't it?
Yeah.
no, that's the crazy shit, man. There's derivatives launching every day. that people are making money off of.
I just haven't been paying attention.
Oh,
Honestly,
I mean,
like whatever.
that part of this industry will never go away. There's just too much
Yeah.
money to be made at any given, because it's not like we're talking about millions. We're talking about billions of dollars, right? And
Yeah.
that is always going to be attached to this space. So there's going to be, the percentage has drastically decreased, I think. Absolutely. But like, I'm part of this project, Sweepers, which is a really cool project that they mint a new NFT every 10 minutes forever. It never ends, right? And they have their own token and they have their own economy. These guys are really smart. I'd love to actually link you guys up because they've created their own DEX, tokenomic, metaverse, NFT world, all encompassed in one. Which is really cool. And you can use their token. You can sell your token for ETH, vice versa, buy it up. But they just swept some like Bored Ape Yacht Simp Club, right? And it's literally just bored apes that look like Simpsons. And that shit still exists. And there's 10,000 of these sons of bitches, and they sold out, and it's sitting at a 0.12 ETH floor. So, I mean, it's mind blowing, but it still exists. And what you're creating is amazing. And believe it or not, we've been talking for almost 2 hours at this point.
Wow.
It's been a fantastic conversation, but I do want to give, and I think this is where Max is going to be doing the heavy lifting here.
Yeah.
I would love to take the next, 20 to 30 minutes to talk about current state. There are people that might not be familiar with the project too. So I'd say like current state of where the project's at, and then, what does the next 2, 4, 5, 6 month road plan look like? However far out you want to go, because I know you guys are doing a ton of stuff. So I'll leave the floor to you, Max, to kind of take us through that.
Cool. Thanks so much. I'm super excited to talk about the game. So currently we have the Citadel NFT, which is the base NFT, and we did a free mint for that, and all of our community members got a free Citadel, and we're excited for that. And one of the promises that we made was that we would give everyone a free pilot that had a Citadel. So in probably, I wish I had a date because that would be more effective, but it's going to be a week to 2 weeks. We're going to launch the pilot. And so if you own a Gen Zero Citadel, which is all of the Citadel, you will be able to claim a free pilot, which is kind of the artwork that you have up on YouTube. And so we're super excited for that. Not only the art is incredible, but as a game piece, it's going to be really significant for us, and it'll also be a little bit more traditional and help us kind of spread the word as people will use these as PFPs.
Yes.
We didn't want to launch with a PFP. We wanted to launch with the Citadel as our main NFT, and derive value from that. And the reason is we just didn't want to copy what everyone else was doing.
Right.
But we always had the idea of these dystopian anti-heroes at the center of the lore. And when we always talked about pilots, we talked about the most despicable people that you could ever imagine, the type of person that has risen to the top of this dystopian post-human world where everything has fallen apart, nothing is working, and everyone is fighting each other. And that's kind of where the pilots kind of fit in. And so if you think of the type of post-humans that are the worst of the worst, that's kind of where we're going. And I think Styx has really nailed the art.
Did a damn good job. And so can you talk real quick about then, so how are the pilots then integrated into the system? Because I think maybe even a step out to kind of explain to everybody, really, I guess if I look at your project from being an NFT noob, there's 3 things that really stick out to me. One, you've got an NFT that is Citadels, these beautiful paintings. You have a token, an in-game token that is being distributed through the Exordium right now, and you have these pilots. So how all of these things interact, and how does that ecosystem work?
Oh, yeah, great. Thank you so much for bringing me back
No,
to
that's cool.
the core of the game, which I haven't even described. And so, Citadel is a war game. It's a game of conquest. You are trying to pick up territory. You're trying to pick up Citadel, and it's all to earn our in-game currency. And so, when the game starts, you're going to place your Citadel and your pilot onto different pieces of land, which we call grid. And once you do that, once you light your Citadel to the grid, you are a target in the game. And so you work with your faction and you work with your you work with your friends, you work with your faction to basically survive. And the longer that you survive, the more drachma that you earn. And some people will be very aggressive and they will be conquerors in the game and they will be taking territory after territory. And those are the types of people that are going to earn the most currency in the game. So it's very much a war game. It's very much a game of conquest where your goal is to be taking territory from your enemy. And so the first real war action of the game is going to be the raid. And what you're going to do is to answer your question about the pilot, so a citadel is a structure. It sits on a piece of grid, and you
Yeah.
can attack a citadel. A pilot is minted from a citadel in the game, and they are able to create a new citadel. So if you have a pilot, you are able to
Ooh.
create a citadel on open grid. So if there's no one there, you can found a citadel on that grid, and that pilot lives in perpetuity in that citadel, and it has major buffs. So if you have a pilot in your citadel, you're going to be hard to defeat because it's going to amplify everything about that citadel. Now, if there are no unopened spaces, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to do a siege. You're going to have to take out another citadel and eject it from the grid when you win, and that's a multi-day
Mm,
process.
I like
Citadel
that.
is a slow play strategy game, so actions in Citadel take hours to days to resolve themselves on the blockchain. And so it's very difficult to take a citadel, but you need a pilot to attack and siege a citadel, eject
Awesome.
the citadel that was there from the grid, and then that becomes yours. You create a citadel with that pilot in it. So that's the citadel and the pilot are the two main game pieces. Those are kind of core to our MVP. And then we have a third that we haven't really talked about, and that's the mentat. The mentat is going to be the intelligence network, and that's how we bridge
Mm,
in, how we make a game on the blockchain really interesting. Because what's really interesting about strategy games is the more intelligence that you can gather about your enemies and about those around you, the better that you're going to play the game.
yep.
So think of the mentat as kind of like spies and intelligence network, and they're going to be stealing information from rival factions to give you kind of asynchronous advantages in the game. And
Right.
that information is kind of going to be shared amongst your faction. There's going to be misinformation. There's going to be treachery. There's going to be betrayal. It's going to be a very strange game to play. But at the core of it is it's a war game, and so you're
Yeah.
taking your citadel and you're trying to make as many citadel as you can. And that's kind of cool from a value capture standpoint because the game not only emits a token, but it emits NFT as well. And so
Right.
I always think about I think an immersive game is a game that allows the collectors to capture value. And everything we've done so far has been given away for free. Our currency has been given away for free. Our NFT has been given away for free, and we are really into the idea of our collectors capturing value from the game.
Yeah.
That could mean selling their drachma. That could mean selling the citadel that they create in the game off on secondary markets. And that's really good for both the game and the game's popularity because it creates a lower entry point. So right
Yes.
now, Gen Zero citadels are I don't know, point 0.5 ETH, and that's out of the range for some people. And so, but a Gen 1 Citadel will not be out of the range for some people. It'll be probably 10x less value. So you could get one for 0.05 ETH, perhaps. And so the game is going to be constantly emitting these Citadel that are less powerful, but also less expensive than the Gen 0 Citadel. And it'll allow our collectors to kind of capture value while having fun playing the game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the long-term vision of the game. There's going to be expansion NFT, but the core of our game right now is a game of conquest where you are raiding and capturing value, territory, in a kind of high stakes game, in a high stakes strategy game. And so
Yeah.
right now we have developed the political system, we've developed the tech tree, and the next up is the pilot. And after that, we are going to be hardcore into the raid mechanic, which I think will be really fun.
I love it. And so a couple questions spawning from that. The mentat that you talked about, is that gonna be visualized through an NFT, or is that more just part of the strategy of the game?
Both. It will be an NFT. There's only going to be it's going to be the most scarce NFT we probably will ever make. There'll just be 128 of them, and most of them will be gifted to people that own a Citadel. And so we're Styx is really excited for the Mentat.
Yeah.
He's been doing some prototypes, and
Oh
they're
boy, I
they're pretty
can't
sick.
wait. I can't wait.
Is this a Dune reference, by the way?
Yeah, we're both huge. We're both
Yeah.
huge Dune fans.
Maddie's a huge Dune fan.
Love it. The second you said it, I was like, "This is perfect. This is fantastic." All right, keep going. Keep
We
going.
may
I'm
have to
excited about
rename.
this.
We may need to rename the Mentat.
Just
But yeah,
spell it
that's
a little different. You're fine.
Yeah. We're gonna use
Yeah.
lead speak on it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's awesome. So that
I
is
like
going to be
it. True
visualized through an
speak.
NFT, a whole nother layer to the strategy, which I think is amazing. Next question. Will I benefit by having, because I think well, I know, but for people that don't know, you're going to have a public version mint of the pilots as well, right? So if someone were to acquire multiple pilots, what is there an advantage to that, and what does that whole scenario look like?
Yeah, so the political system that we're developing, the warlord technocracy, is based off of a pilot characteristic called the cult. And so there's bribery and extortion built into the political system. And the more pilot you have, the more cults that you can belong to. There's going to be 8 cults in the game, and the cults are kind of recipients of payola through the game. So we have this concept called the sovereign collective in the game, and these are going to be a 128 pilot that rule the game, that ultimately have, and we're making a fully on-chain blockchain native game that is eventually going to be completely decentralized in its decision making. So Styx and I are making a game. We're the authors of the game, but we will loosen our grip on the game and make it as decentralized as possible. That's the fun of blockchain games. So the main mechanics of Citadel, everything about the economics of Citadel. So it's a tokenized game, so that's incredibly important. Creating economic balance in the game to bring in new wallets and to reward existing wallets is really important. And the sovereign collective, you can think of it as a DAO, but these 128 pilots are going to control the flow of drachma onto the grid, and so they're going to have their hands on a number of economic levers that control the game. And so, in order to stay in power, the sovereign collective needs to make constant bribes to the cults of Citadel. And if you think of the cults of Citadel, they're kind of they're like the parliament. They're parties in a parliament,
Right.
but a very corrupt parliament. And so if you have a pilot, you're going to be getting constant payments of drachma or bribery to keep these sovereign collective in power. And so I think political systems and the tech tree that we've developed are really underdeveloped aspects of 4X and strategy games. And so
Yeah.
we wanted to really lean into those things to
Yeah.
differentiate us. And I'm really excited for how dark and dystopian our political system is.
No, I love that. And so are these 120 pilots, are they tagged as a certain property in the NFT collection, or as long as you have a pilot, those 128 can rotate based on how the game evolves?
Yeah, so in order to become a sovereign, you need to overthrow a sovereign, and you do that with drachma. And so the drachma goes into the collective, and then it goes out into the cults. A portion of it is burned, but it's a game of power. To be a sovereign means that you are constantly getting drachma from the game, and to become a sovereign, you need to throw even more drachma into that pool to overthrow someone. And that you may do that for political reasons, you may do that for power reasons, or you just may do that for status reasons. The end result is that you are going to be receiving a lot of drachma from in the game because the sovereign collective actually controls many aspects of the game. It's relatively complicated, and we have probably a 7-page Substack on the matter. Check it out. It's deep in our link tree, but yeah,
I want to.
there's
I
quite a
want.
bit of intricate detail
Yeah.
written into our political system, and we plan to expand it quite a bit.
So
Now,
what's
are you gonna have?
go
Hold
ahead.
on, real quick. I gotta inject one question here. Are you gonna have certain characters or players in this game that are essentially NPCs? And what I
That's a
mean by that is like, because when you have political systems like that, you almost need to have certain ones that would be stabilizing elements, right? And even when it comes to the lore or whatnot, and almost things that like can't be overrun but are just there to influence. Is that part of what it's doing, or is this going to be 100% player run? The pilots are the sovereigns are going to be the 128, whoever those players are.
100% player run. And so my theory of tokenized games is that all decisions can be driven by economic motivation. And that's how we plan to balance the game. We plan to balance the game through drachma by giving you this token that hopefully has value. And we will get people to do what we want them to do through economic incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
eventually those levers for the levers for the economic incentives will be passed down to the sovereign collective. And these people who are battle worn, who have paid a ton of drachma to be here, who are fighting off rivals that are trying to overthrow them, will have so much power within the game that it will become a game in and of itself to become a sovereign, to reap the benefits
Mm-hmm.
of sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
so I honestly have no idea what's going to happen here.
Cool.
We built in like 5 layers of organization to the game because we have the faction and we expect the factions to fail. And then
Mm-hmm.
underneath that we have this political system and we have the cult and we want them to fail as well. And then we have class warfare that's built into the game
Right.
Yeah.
through the sect of the Citadel. And we expect all of these things to be constantly failing and forming in new ways that we have no idea about. And that's part of the fun of a decentralized game is we will have
Yeah.
no control whatsoever. And the game is going to run in perpetuity for as long as people are interested in it.
Right.
And no one knows where it's going to go. But
That's
what
right.
I do think that I know is that we can drive and balance a game through economic incentives.
No, I actually like that concept.
Mm.
Here's a real question that comes up, and I'm sure you all struggle with that. Have
As opposed
talked.
to an illusionary question.
Is struggle, or I'm assuming you've thought of, um, someone like if I could, I would spend all of my time just on your website in your Discord because I really love your project. Reality is we deal with hundreds of projects and I just don't have time. And to fully grasp and take advantage of my Citadel NFT and the pilot one that I'll mint, I feel like I have to have a pretty intimate knowledge of the system, and there's multiple layers. What are your thoughts there when it comes to how do you balance the people that are diehard, like I think Jakar is one of them, right? He's in the Discord 24/7, and people that have built your website opposed to the casual player, because there has to be a balance there, right? There's not going to be everybody that is just this hardcore Citadel fanatic. Love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of a project that I'm really passive in, but I still love, and that's Wolf Game. I think it's a super interesting project,
Right.
and if you've ever played, it's like just basically like this bizarre version of Farmville. And I wasn't even on the Discord for like 3 months, but I have wolves and I've got some farmland, and the game's about to launch, and I'm just really disconnected with it. But every time I see a tweet, I understand what's going on in the game because they're building lore from the game and I'm connected to the game through that lore.
Yep.
And so at the very least, you're going to be just by following us on Twitter and seeing some of our posts and seeing some of our writing, you're going to be connected to the game through lore. And the game is slow play. You don't need to play every day. You don't need to log in every day. You don't need to be on our Discord. You don't even need to take an action in the game to play the game. You
Right.
stake your citadel to the grid. You raise some fleet to defend yourself, and when you're ready to engage, you can make an action a day. The game is actually built to have very few actions, and we want a lot of the interest in the game to happen offline, to spill out into social dips. And we've
Mm,
seen this happening with our Exordium. People have just taken this incredibly simple game and they've made new games out of it. They've made games of power struggle out of it,
Mm.
and they've taken it in ways that have really surprised both of us. And
Mhm.
we're hoping to build on that because that's more interesting than point, click, and shoot.
I love it. No, no,
It's a
that's
new
a
type of
great answer.
fun, like what we were getting at earlier,
Right,
right?
Yeah.
right, right. Yeah, and yeah, and the real question, and you answered it too, is there is a way to still be passive within this game, but enjoy the fun of it. Right? Is really
Mhm.
what you're saying, which is I knew you guys have thought about this, but I wanted to.
You were
Uh,
hoping that we'd be like, "What? What are you
no,
talking
no, I
about?"
was not hoping it. I'm always interested to hear your perspectives because you just have so much more experience than Maddie or I do with gaming. Um, all of this makes sense, and it's all freaking amazing and exciting. Maddie, do you have any thoughts about the actual game and what we've talked about, or can we continue to move on? I
No,
got about
no.
like a
My
half.
biggest one with the NPCs is there going to be an AI element that's computer run. You said no. I think, I see how both work. You know what I mean? For sure. I think there's a lot of lore, and that was the only reason I asked, is because I think you've done such a great job of creating the lore. NPCs and are very good at mm, teaching people as they're through the game, almost like educationally. Like for example, if there was a, I don't know, not so you have like these multiple gangs, right? And or cults, and it's like almost if there was a cult. I'm trying to think of a word, almost like a lore master or like a chronicler or something like that, who was available to kind of like share the background of each one to kind of give a little bit of life to it. But like you said, if it evolves completely organically, then the cult itself could shift and change and merge into different things, and like you said, fail and be brought back up in a different way. And so yeah, it really just is what it is. It's going to be something that's kind of completely open and transformational. So that's cool.
Well, I love the idea of NPCs. So we don't
Mhm.
like we've really been feeling. I'd love to hear Styx's thoughts on this, but we've done several 90-degree turns making this game,
Hmm.
and it's just been we're super active with our community. We're in chat. We're talking to them. We hear everyone's feedback, and if
Yeah.
good ideas come from everywhere, and there's just tons of things that are
Yeah,
in the game now that are straight from our community and
I
straight
love
for
from
it.
sure.
ideas like here. So I think NPCs are a cool idea. I
Mhm.
think that's something we should explore. What do you think about that, Sticks?
I'm 100% into that. I've always felt like NPCs would be a good way to get our community used to the mechanics of the gameplay too,
Yeah.
Ooh,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
Like how cool would it be to have our community like because this is I think Max talked about this the first time we came onto the to your show, but like when he talks about people feeling something, he's also talking about like the fear of like getting an entire Citadel burned, and that's real money for some people,
right,
right?
Yeah.
And so, as sinister as that sounds, it's going to be super tough to have that happen, of course. But we've talked about like having a part of the grid where people can like, what does it mean to have a raid, and to what does it look like to have a partnership in like how do we work
Sure.
with our community and our factions, and then like having mechanisms within the game that promote extortion or promote bribery, like what does that UI flow look like,
right,
Yeah.
and like with NPCs, it's a safe place to like experiment,
right,
and
Exactly.
what I'm saying, so I get your point
Exactly.
with that, and to me it's very exciting because it's also like God, how cool would it be to, you know, in IRL, like having an experiment with social? I mean, this is all social experimenting anyway, because
Yeah.
like Max and I don't know where this is going to go.
right.
Uh, so I don't know. I was going to go down another path, but I'm going to retract that part about IRL. So we're just going to focus on the game. So yeah, we
Yeah.
want to like Max, I think it'd be a really great idea for us to do at least some experimenting with that and get some of our buddies that do AI to help us out.
That
I
would be
mean,
cool.
yeah, because the big areas you think about, like when you start a big MMO, right? There's always essentially a tutorial quest, right?
Hmm.
And it kind of guides you through it. And I'm imagining, I invest this time, I get a Citadel, especially if I get one of the lower cost ones and it's not as strong, and maybe I want to learn how to be a little bit better or whatnot. I'm thinking like having centralized characters that are kind of just universal for everyone to see, and they could even be robots or whatever, something
Hmm.
cyborgs or something. That are there, or AI teachers, kind of like from Halo kind of concept, but they guide you through the process of like how to raid or what, some simple overarching strategies or thoughts. And then the other area I really think is cool about NPCs is Mike and I played a lot of Elder Scrolls Online, so I'm going to use that as an example. But the story mechanic of that all comes down to this like group of companions, right? That
Hmm.
we're all together, and these companions are like the main characters. You can't ever play them in the game. You don't even fight them in the game, but they are
Hmm.
there to kind of bring you through the story. And so each upcoming expansion or whatever it might have been, Mike, if you remember the expansion that was out in Skyrim, and it was all
Right.
about like, it was Lyra's Titanborn taking you through it.
Titanborn.
But then when you go to elsewhere, it was Sai Sahan that was guiding you through it. Like these guides were universal characters from the beginning, and it just made it easy as you expanded to have essentially like narrators, for lack of a better
Hmm.
term, or guides
Yep.
to take you through it. And I thought with all the lore you've built, especially with your ties to things like Dune and love for that, you would be able to put so many cool Easter eggs and like character to those specific people, and it gives you a chance, Sticks, to basically create a group of like core unbelief. Like you could almost take your top 5 or 6, concepts for these creatures or characters, or maybe something completely new. Like again, think
Hmm.
about almost like an ethereal AI being, like
Hmm.
a Cortana or something. Whatever
Hmm.
whatever your mind and imagination comes to, and then create these. And it's like it's just part of the game. It's a place for creativity, but
Hmm.
it's not necessarily something that the users have control
Yeah,
over. Anyway, that was just a thought.
my mind goes right to creating a Hydra of an AI where it has a base like system and then multiple heads for
Sure.
different sort of
Hell yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sold.
I mean, you're already taking it beyond, and that's what I'm saying. That's it. Just seems like a cool concept. So I threw it out there. If that's it, chew on it. If it helps, great.
Dude, look at
Love
this.
it. Love it.
Not only are we solving life's world problems, we're actually giving some ideas to the cause too.
right. That's what it's all about. It's reciprocity. Otherwise, what's the
Mm.
point?
Yep. Yep.
So we are 2.5 hours almost in. I wanna give a chance knowing that you guys are, 'cause I will literally talk to you for 5 hours. So I wanna be cognizant of
Oh,
your time. I know you all are
we'll send our invoice. It's fine. No.
and kind of I think I'd love to hear from both of you, right?
Mhm.
Couple minutes from both of you about really just game. Like uh, what are you excited about in the future over the next 6 months, and anything about the game that you want to share with the people listening or who could listen to this YouTube video in the future. And you both can kind of just, take a couple minutes stab at that. Uh, I think I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, sure. So when we started this out and we both kind of co-created this game, what we wanted to do was create a strategy game for real stakes. We both love strategy games, and we believe that a game with real outcomes, like tangible outcomes, which you can get through a token, makes a game incredibly immersive. And we know that it works because we've seen what Axie has done. We have seen the interest that has swelled around a game where you're just these two little cartoon characters are battling each other. And we know that we can make something that is much more immersive than that. and has the exact same properties and values, be it tokenization,
Right.
that can be an explosive combination. And so I'm really excited to get our game out there. I'm a big believer in the space. I work in Web3 IRL. I am convinced, just as I was convinced about Bitcoin in 2013, 2014, that this is transformational technology. And so I am just as excited right now in the bear market. I'm more excited right now than I was 6 months ago, 12 months ago,
Yeah.
because I know that people are building right now and something is going to emerge that is going to be super immersive, that's going to bring in the next group of a million, 10 million, 100 million users, new
Mhm.
people into the space,
Yeah.
and mainstreaming Web3. Of course, Web3 is going to mainstream. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I really do believe it's going to come from a tokenized game.
Mm.
And so that's what I'm really excited about. I'm excited to get our creation, this strange world of Citadel, out into the world and see what we've got.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. All right, Sticks, your 2 to 3 minutes. And I didn't even notice that, but said this in the beginning. After this, we have 2 questions for you. I don't think we did this in the first one either.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, well, and don't be scared. They're very simple.
I'm fearless in my algorithms.
You are really playing character right
Fear is
now.
the
I
mind
love
killer,
it.
bro.
Fear
Yeah.
is the mind killer. We have a YouTube video. We'll send it to you. It's literally titled that. um,
uh,
yeah. So let's
so
hear your a couple minutes about the same stuff.
absolutely. So Max is so articulate, and every time I listen to him speak, it's always it trances me out. It's great because he is so clear-minded, and like whenever I think of the Mentat, I think of him in the sense of just like such precision and the way that he's mapping out so many things, and he covered what we're doing for this game, and I think what I can add to it is to rest assured to add the dimensionality of the artwork and to the gameplay and to the UI UX, all the things that make up the game itself. We're going to be putting just as much effort, if not more, into that to make sure it's fluid and to make sure it's fun. Uh, and the key thing here is that we're not beholden to anybody, and
Yeah.
we're not answering to anybody. We didn't take money from people. We're all self-funded, and that's something that both of us have been very vigilant on, and I'm just amazed. This is just a testament of like what we can do, for anyone can do, is just to create. And this all started from a conversation between Max and myself, and we were just talking about this yesterday. Like here we are, X amount of months later, and I've produced
Mhm.
more work than I've ever produced in my life,
Yeah.
and it's only like getting better.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is like the tip of the iceberg, and I'm super grateful for this community. I'm grateful for you guys in this platform and giving us this opportunity to speak our minds very freely about our thoughts uh, and our consideration of like what we're doing for the industry. And I'm just very grateful for this. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, man. I mean, it's fun. I love hearing you two and your dynamic because it reminds me a lot of Maddie and I too. I mean, Maddie and I talk on a daily basis, and
Mm.
I can't tell you how many countless times we have said, you you remember when I met you at the fourth grade bus stop? Did you ever think that we'd be running an NFT show and have thousands of followers in our 40s? No,
Mhm.
not at all. Um,
Right.
and it's just really cool how things work if you surround yourself with the right people and got a good mindset.
Totally.
So
Absolutely.
we're gonna close this out, and I'm hoping this is definitely not the last time you come on. I'd love to have you back on when the next iteration of we kind of did this knowing that the pilots are coming out hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and then any other milestones in the future we can continue to do this because it's just very thoroughly enjoyable. But
Wonderful.
before we shut it down, we've got 2 final questions that we've started asking, and the first one is, do you have any questions for Maddie and I? Because we just peppered you with questions for 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Be prepared for another 2 hours, my friend.
And if you don't have any questions, it's totally fine. We just like to offer that
No,
up.
I appreciate that. It's a really good thing. And Max, before I ask my questions, do you have any questions for these guys?
Yeah. So a bunch of my buddies are watching the show, and they have decided that Maddie is Maddie Diesel because he's ripped. And so my question is actually to Mikey, and it's how intimidated are you by how ripped Maddie is?
Well, the man has had 8-pack abs his whole life. I used to be in shape, but I let the desk job and craft beer take a hold of me. But it's not Matt's look. It's the fact that I know what Matt is capable of because he's poured his blood, sweat, souls, and tears into martial arts, self-defense, all of the things that are practical skills and knowledge that anybody should have. I'm just that person that I have a very hard time like killing a spider or a fly. That's just not in me. But Matt has just a different practical knowledge. So what scares me about Matt is, and I tell this story, and he's heard this a bajillion times, but vividly remember this. We were drinking Mountain Dew, playing a Final Fantasy or something in his basement. And I knew Matt was like a quadruple black belt or whatever he was in karate at the time. I was like, he spends a lot of time at the studio. And I think I jokingly said, like, bro, you can't hurt me. And like within a split second, this dude's toe was at my temple from a roundhouse kick. And that was the only time in my life, other than maybe one other time, that I just like wanted to poo and pee my pants all at the same time.
Oh my God. That's
And
hilarious.
that moment has never left my mind. So that is what intimidates me about Matt. He's a beautiful looking
jeez.
man. How I look at Matt's amazing, beautiful looks and chiseled ass body is when he's with me, that just makes my life better, right? Like I get to experience some things that if I was by myself, might not get the same looks. So it's a win-win for me from that
jeez.
perspective.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Great answer. Thanks.
Absolutely. Sticks. Any questions?
Yeah, I got lots of questions, but we'll keep it, I guess, movie friendly. So one of the things that I was wondering as I was talking with both of you, is, you have this friendship, you have this evolution, this camaraderie. Whenever you are talking with each other, like what do you find is the most inspiring thing lately? Like what's been like the thing that whenever you both come together to connect, that you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that we get to talk about this because this has been on my mind. Like what is that right now?
You want to go first, Maddie, or I can go?
Go ahead.
So I actually think, in my mind, it's been consistent. Like, well, I would say that it's kind of 2 parts. At the current moment, what inspires me personally, and like what Maddie and I talk about, is just creating tons of new content. Right? Like our stream is the base of what we do. But we started doing stupid TikTok videos, and we're looking at trends, and we're having fun with being creative. It's actually really enjoyable for me to see Matt get out of his comfort shell when it, because I am the comedic relief. I have no problem doing just ridiculous shit. But Matt's like warming up to it. Does that's actually really inspiring and enjoyable to me. And we talk about like what content can we be making every day, and how do we better and improve ourselves that way. That what I say is like in the current moment what we talk about a lot. But I would say the consistent thing that we constantly talk about, probably still each day, or is the main driver, is just the very simple principle of helping other people win. Just dumbing down life to like what we think the simple principles are, is just be kind, pay it forward. And the manifestation of what does that look like in the future, because we don't know yet, but we know that we can feel it building, right? Because we know that we're 1,000% convinced that how we're handling ourselves are we've built a mission statement, we have pillars that launch out to that. We think that's a key to success in life. And it comes in many different ways, right? I mean, I think we talk a lot about the social capital that we're building. Like, we would not be able to talk to amazing people like yourselves. I mean, even Tuesday, right? We had an insane conversation with a guy that I would have never talked to, 6-7 years ago, if I had not decided to go down this road with one of my best buddies. So it was kind of like two answers there, but a great question, a phenomenal question.
Yeah, my answer to that is at the end of the day, we're excited about unplugging people from the matrix, man. And you said it earlier. And we talked about it with divergent thinking. Why does it go from, mostly geniuses 4 to 5 to just 1% as adults? It's because there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of programming that needs to be removed so people can be free to be who they are, be themselves, and be and really kind of like shine in whatever they're passionate about. And there's room for that for all of us, right? That's the best part.
Absolutely.
You succeeding at a high level doesn't take away from anybody else, and that's a huge misconception. The world is a factory. We can keep making more. You know what I mean? And that's I think a big kind of thing for people to understand. So yeah, unplugging people from the matrix is a big thing, and to do that, you got to have influence, you got to have an audience, but it's something we're passionate about because we've had so many amazing mentors in our life and so many experiences where we realize, man, I thought this for so long, and once I let that go, it was so freeing. Or once I realized that the person really responsible for this is me, and taking personal responsibility for that, and it's the man in the mirror, so to speak. Mike talks about it a lot. That's a massive realization for people, right? And helping people through that, we had help. I think a lot of people, seeking out mentors that can help you along the way is a huge part of it. And to what Mike was saying, having this platform has opened us up to just an incredible level of people to associate with, and a network of people who also continue, because it can never end, right? It's not like we're finished. We're still growing. We still have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So we have to get around people who are like-minded, and they're at a higher level than even we are, to help pull us up and bring us up to the next level. And this has provided something that's allowed us to do both things, right? Rather than being crabs in a bucket and pulling everybody else down so we're all at the same level, we're reaching up, we're learning, we're growing, and we're reaching down and pulling as many people up with us. And that's what we're passionate about, right? I mean, we elevate each other, and at the end of the day, that's how we win. It's what we're, like you said. I think one of the best lines in this whole conversation was, "Life is a co-op game," and we need to move it from single player to co-op as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I say one of the and this isn't like exciting. It's just Maddie talking. It's just something I think about a lot. Is I feel so incredibly fortunate that like I have a best friend with a similar mindset that wants to build something, change lives, but at the same time, if I need to tell him, "Yo, man, I think you're out of line, bro. You got to check yourself." I
Mm-hmm.
know it's not going to come into the Tiffy stupid bullshit. He takes it for what it's worth. I
Yeah.
take it for what he says for what it's worth. Uh, and then we move on and grow together. And that can only be
Yeah.
possible if you can find someone like you two have with yourselves, and like Maddie and I have, that can look at things objectively and be willing to want to grow and change. I mean, honestly, looking back, like we met through midlife crisis. Maddie and I have both been through some hard times, in the last handful of years. And just that feeling of being able to be there for him and he being able to be there for me is just, that's probably the most satisfying feeling in life.
Mm. I appreciate that. Thank you for answering that question.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And that was a great question. I appreciate it too. Final question. And we started asking this, and you gave us amazing feedback last time, but since we've done it twice, we still just like to get the input. You guys do AMAs yourself. You've sat on tons of AMAs, sat through tons of shows. How did you think today went? And just sentiments about the format and what we just experienced for 2 hours and 50 minutes. And you can go first, Sticks.
So feedback.
Yeah.
I think uh, for one, it's been a fantastic experience. You both are very thoughtful in your questions. I've done a lot of E3 shows and done lots of interviews and things like that where it's canned,
Yeah.
I think someone in our Discord was talking about how organic this is, and that's something that I really appreciate, is that there's that space to take the conversation and flow with it. Um, I think uh, as far as where could there be um, improvements, I don't see too many places. You both are very pro in the way that you approach things. Um, I just wonder about maybe changing your background, Mikey G, a little bit. There's something in the over your right shoulder that's distracting me. So there's not some stuff in the back, not the logo, but that, that's just from my perspective.
Yeah.
I'm probably not
you're
looking.
are you
I'm not
talking
looking.
about so what you're seeing on
Oh, I'm
that
seeing.
camera?
Oh, through. Okay, never mind. So,
Man, you were really pulling for something constructive, but I got you beat on that one.
yeah.
I
So
love it though. No, that's
no,
fantastic. That's good.
that's fantastic. What
Yeah.
audience, what Sticks is talking about is I actually have a 2-camera setup. So what he's seeing me on Discord is my disorganized background. But what you see on YouTube is my beautiful ginger ass and a logo behind my head.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that said, uh, that's all I have to say about
I
that.
love it. No, I appreciate the feedback,
No,
man.
fair
And
enough. That's good.
again, so coming from someone like you, it just it means a lot, and that these sentiments help us continue to evolve our brand
Sure.
and win together, and that's what we ultimately all want to do, right? How about you, Max? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, so first of all, our community is abuzz with Maddie's NPC idea, and they're all kind of riffing off it right now. So would really like to have Maddie in our Discord more often, and Mikey, you pop in from time to time, so thanks for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And I think your community needs some of our magic fake internet money, drachma. And so, however you want to do that, collect some ETH addresses, anyone in Discord, whatever you want to do, just send it over and we'll get that out
Awesome.
free of charge, and that'll be
Appreciate it.
cool. Um, Yeah, I mean, just as optimistic as I am about there being a Web3 breakout hit in gaming, there's going to be Web3 breakout hits in communication and shows and the stuff that you guys are doing. And just really feel like I'm talking to a couple friends.
Hmm.
I can tell we're four pros here. We've honed our craft, we've grinded, and we're grinding right now. We're
Yeah.
grinding through a bear market, and the people that are doing that right now are gonna come out of the other end doing really well. And I'm excited to be on your show again. Thanks so much.
Awesome. I appreciate it too.
Thanks,
And
man.
I can't express how excited I am for you guys, and a lot of the other guests that we have not met yet. It was really magical being in New York and just meeting the people in real life, and
Hmm.
there's just such a cool element to that, right? So I can't wait
Hmm.
till we have that. And Max, I'm gonna hunt you down because we're both near each other. So
That's right. Let's go surfing,
we're
Mikey.
gonna go surf. I have no clue how to
Do it.
surf, but
I'll just fly in. It'll be fun.
well, all four of us will. Well, that's good.
There you
Do
go.
it.
Um, but yeah,
We'll just
thank
have
you
to
so
blur out our
much.
faces when we're like, it's like pixelated. I'll put a pixelated mask on of a
Yes.
pilot's.
I love it. So Maddie, I'll let you start with the closing words, and then I'll go, and we'll call it a night.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I knew this was going to be a great conversation. Um, Everything you guys have said has just reinforced everything I already believed about the project and about you guys as the founders. I love the new art. Mikey and I on multiple streams have talked about we've just been going through and reviewing things, and we will go back and visit just your tweets and just seeing like what are you guys working on and seeing new art. And it's always a stopping point, and we just have to sit there and marvel at how amazing everything is and just the thought process, the detail of the lore. I mean, just when you talk about a political system and how that hasn't been done, well, there's an easy answer for that because it's insanely complex. You know what I mean? It's insanely complex. You just said you're at 7 pages, and it's like it just takes a tremendous amount of time to put that together. And the fact that you guys are doing that and doing it in a way that will be balanced and fun just says so much more. And I said that early on. I just think that what you've done is you've making the broccoli edible. You know what I mean? You've made it taste like Doritos somehow, and I don't know how you did it. And I think that's just a really really cool thing. I see the passion in you guys. I am a firm believer that mastery first requires passion because it's the only way you put in the reps. It's the only way you put in the time. Six, you've been doing this. You said since you were just a ballpoint pen scrapping on paper. So you're not you've been doing this for much longer than most people have a chance to do this. And I think that what we're seeing is the result of that mastery. And you see that in both of you. And so I'm really excited about it. I have some really cool quotes I wrote down that I like. Just like I said, feeling something when you play the game, the concept of what fun is, and how you said you kept revisiting what is fun. I'm going to ask myself that question because I thought about it, and I don't think I have a really articulate answer, and I think that's worth thinking about because Mike and I have a show where our goal is to be entertaining and talk to people in a fun and engaging way. And I think I need to think about that. What does that mean? And so I'm just really excited because I felt like I learned something from this. And I think I'm going to make a shirt that says life is a co-op game. So um, it's fantastic. I love the Dune references. I hope things go well. If NPCs work out, I will hop in the Discord more, but this has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. Been great.
Yeah, and
Mikey.
I will just layer onto that everything that Maddie just said. And again, I'm always blown away by our conversations. I'm blown away by how professional you are, your talent. It's unfortunate that the space is run in the way it is currently run, but I do and Maddie are firm believers of the long game will always ultimately win out, and we're doing exactly what you said right now, right? We're grinding during a pretty severe bear market, and we'll continue to do that. And I know you will be here, and I know over the next multiple years we'll be able to continue growing our friendship. And just the thank you for, I know how busy you are. Thank you for your time. Time is by
Yeah.
far the most valuable thing that all of us have, especially juggling. I still have a regular job. Maddie still does too. And we're trying to build this company on the side. So that is just, that's the best thing that you could ever give us. So thank you so much. And again, continue to grow the friendship, our relationship. Anything you ever need from us, Maddie and I got it immediately. You want some custom YouTube videos, you need retweets is the least of the things we can do. So we're here to help, and I'll make sure to continue to remind Maddie you get in that damn Discord and talk NPCs.
Thank you so much. That's so awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. Goes both ways. Anything you need, just let us know, and I'm really into our growing friendship. Thanks so much.
Love it.
Thank you, man. And with that being said, the Midlife Crisis show is coming to an end. But big week, we have a special Friday MLC show tomorrow. It's at a wonky time because the people we're talking to is in London. Really cool people we've already talked to on the phone. Project is called Cryptoria. They have an awesome ecosystem that they have built. The founders are coming on. They're in London. So we are going at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. We will be back for a special Friday episode with Cryptoria. We love you all. Thanks for hanging out with almost 3 hours for this long format conversation. We'll see you tomorrow, midlife.